All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome. I don't know what that is. If you are new, getting distracted by something. I don't know what the hell that is on my shirt there. But yeah, welcome back, and welcome if you're new. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. We have a lot to discuss, a lot of different topics to talk about. I'm actually very excited to talk about uh, many of the things that are on the docket today. I hope everybody's doing well. I do have to put this out here now, just because it's kind of an unknown factor, and it remains to be seen how it may or may not impact today's stream. So apparently, there's going to be some kind of big storm happening later on today. I don't know if it's as serious as you know as they're making it seem. Nothing like crazy. Just to be clear, it's not like not like a hurricane or nothing like that, but just a storm's coming of some kind. So I'm just saying this because if at any point over the course of this stream it just cuts or whatever, it likely means I lost power due to the storm. Because apparently it's going to kind of peak as we are um, as we are streaming. Because of course, why wouldn't it? Yeah, I am on the East Coast. Yeah, so not looking forward to that, but I was very productive today. I will let you know. I got something done today that gaming related that I did not think I was going to get done. And I really wanted to because I really wanted to talk to you guys about it. So I'm going to talk about that. That's actually going to be the first thing I dive into, but before I do, I'm going to let you know what topics we have to discuss today, okay? The big topic of discussion today is going to be talking about these rumors that are swirling around Microsoft and Xbox games and how it seems like Microsoft is really beginning to lean more so on the side of becoming somewhat of a third party publisher. Not fully. I mean, obviously, when we talk about rumors like this, when we dive into these conversations, you're going to see people jumping to all sorts of conclusions. And I'm going to let you know right now, before we even get into that topic, that we are not jumping to conclusions here. Okay. I'm not. I guess I can't speak for anybody in the chat, but I would highly recommend not jumping to any conclusions because we just don't. Things are in flux, things are in motion. And if there's anything that this conversation should highlight today by the time we're done with it, is that, man, you just never know month over month, year over year, what direction these companies are going to go in, man. It's truly becoming more unpredictable than ever before. And it makes it kind of exciting, but inevitably it's also going to lead to some toxicity as well. So we're going to talk about that extensively, but that's not going to be the first topic I will say New Soul 9 dropped quite a few super chats here, which is very generous of him. So New Soul 9, thank you so much for that, man. I'm going to get to them, so no worries there. You know how it goes. So it might end up being our first topic based on these super chats, but we do have other topics that we're going to be covering as well. Sony CES, it happened last night. Boy, am I glad that I didn't stream it. See, my gut was telling me, MBG, don't stream Sony CES. Just don't do it. And man, I am glad I did not. It's not to say that it was like bad in and of itself. It was fine. It was a CES presentation. But when it comes to PlayStation and PlayStation's presence at CES, pretty much non-existent. However, there are a few small things, minor things, kind of what I predicted, just very small things that showed up. And there's actually one thing that didn't show up that kind of surprised me a little bit, and I'll talk about that. We're also going to be talking about, excuse me, well, let me see here. I have a couple of different things on the docket. We're going to talk a little bit about Hogwarts Legacy. We got some kind of shocking information about this game. We're going to be talking about the Xbox Direct that was just announced. I figured it's only natural that we bring this up because I think it's relevant to the conversation we're going to have here for multiple reasons. We're going to be talking about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. First previews are out. Not looking good. Not looking good at all. So if we have time, we're going to talk about that. And then finally, I have another thing here that, again, if time permits, it really depends on how deep we get into some of these discussions. PlayStation's head of third-party deals and acquisitions gives insight into how it all works. So that might be something interesting worth talking about and diving into. So, yeah, that's essentially what we're going to be discussing today. Now, before I get into any of these topics, I want to first and foremost just thank everybody for supporting my content. If it wasn't for your viewership, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching later on, or if you're watching my videos, I wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you guys so much for that. I want to ask you to just take a moment of your time and hit that like button. Okay. We have over 270 people here, which is great to see. If we could just take a moment, hit that like button. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes. It helps the streams out a lot. I've actually noticed lately, because you guys have been actually hitting that like button when I ask you to do so, we've been getting more likes, and because of that, I'm getting more unique viewers in. So, yeah, it's just worth emphasizing here. I tell you guys all the time that the reason why we want to like the stream and support it in that way is because it notifies YouTube's algorithm to send this stream out to new viewers, and that's exactly what's happening. So, if you want to contribute to growing this awesome community, that's all you got to do. But if you want to go above and beyond and support my content and my channel directly, there are 3 ways in which you can do this. You can become a channel member. You gain access to some exclusive perks, one of which is the Members Lounge. Yes, as long as nothing happens storm-wise today that interferes with the stream, I will be doing another Members Lounge today. So look forward to that if you are a member. If you are already a member, please consider gifting channel memberships. We have some very generous individuals here on the channel that dole out many membership gifts. Not only does it support me directly, but it gets the community directly involved and hyped. And last but not least, as New Soul 9 and Doolin Jones have done here, please consider donating a super chat. Ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. It helps out tremendously. So with all of that out of the way, here's the first thing I want to talk about. Again, New Soul 9, I'm going to get into your super chats, but I got to tell you guys, I tell you right now, Liza P, go buy Liza P. Okay, Liza P is a fantastic game. If you're on Xbox, play this on Game Pass. I'm assuming it's still on Game Pass. Amazing game. The reason why I am bragging about Liza P today is because I did it. I actually did it. I platinumed Liza P. And let me tell you, man. Let me tell you. Wow. Most proud platinum I think I have obtained at this point. I can't believe I did it. I got to just tell you guys a little story about my journey here. Before I do that, though, we have actually Trismegistus. And yes, I got to that part again in my New Game Plus, and you're right. That is a part of the game where they do mention that in the game. But actually, Trismegistus drops 5 membership gifts for the community, gets us off to a very strong start, which is awesome to see. So actually, thank you so much for all your support and all the support you show the community. Let's get some W's flowing in the chat there. I'm going to add that to the counter. And so, guys, I literally got the Liza P Platinum this morning. And I went to bed stressed out about this game last night, as funny as that sounds. No, I'm not going to spoil anything. This is just going to be my kind of... I just got to talk about what my experience was like trying to obtain this Platinum. When I first played this game, obviously I fell in love with it, enjoyed every hour, ended up being my game of the year. Really felt like there's no way I'm going to get this Platinum, right? I looked at the trophies, I'm like, this is going to be a challenging one, and that requires multiple playthroughs. And so, recently when I decided to play New Game Plus, I just wanted to do it for fun. But as I got further and further into it, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. I'm going to go for the Platinum. I'm going to go for the gold here, so to speak. And it was... So my experience with Liza P New Game Plus, it was fantastic until and it's not that it became bad. It's just I hit a brick wall, dude. Like by, I would say, the last 3 bosses of the game. Oh my God, I was not prepared. Like it makes the struggle that I had with my first playthrough look like child's play, truthfully. And it kind of shocked me because I was having like I wasn't having a struggle in New Game Plus the entire time. I was like, damn, this is gonna be piece of cake at this point. And again, if you know the three bosses, so to be clear, there's like an optional end boss. I had to defeat that optional end boss um a second time to make sure I got all of the endings because there are multiple endings on New Game Plus. And these last three bosses, man, pushed me to my limit. I spent almost all day yesterday grinding this game, and I told myself yesterday I am going to get this platinum today, no matter what, whatever it takes. Flash forward like 8 hours later, for the first time ever. I don't know if it was exactly 8 hours, but for the first time ever, my DualSense Edge let me know, like, bro, the battery's gonna die. So I had to pull out my backup controller here. That's how serious it got. And I hit a brick wall at the final boss of the game. Again, no spoilers, but the final boss that's not the optional boss, he broke me, dude. Like he broke me. I was pissed off last. I was literally in a horrible mood. I'm like, this is bullshit. Like I know I was like, there's no way. I honestly told myself like I'm not doing this. I walked away from the game last night. I'm like, I'm not doing this. This is too much. This is too stressful. This is making me upset. It's not worth it. I'm just gonna have to walk away with just missing a couple trophies. And then it came to me in my dreams last night. No, it didn't come to me in my dreams, but I woke up and, sometimes you just got to walk away from. I think I was having such a problem last night because it was just, you play the game for so many hours, you get a little burnt out. You need to just take a break, come back. But I did have to change my strategy completely. I did have to look up some tips from people online on Reddit to kind of, different builds. And I discovered that in acid build, essentially, I had to respec my guy. I had to respec him and create a full-blown acid build. And to my surprise, I blew right through it, man, this morning. And I just wanted to talk about it because to me, this is what it's all about. This is why I wanted to chase the Lies of P Platinum, because it's a reminder of just some of the best experiences you can have with playing games, right? Like games that really challenge you, games that cause you to have to, adapt and overcome. And, we talk about difficulty in games. And I gotta say, I went through the entire gamut, the whole gamut of emotion, where last night I felt defeated. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. I felt bad. And then this morning I was like, you know what? Get up, try it again, change your strategy, overcome it. And I did. And I surprised myself. I'm like, damn, this is like the most satisfying platinum I've ever obtained. Right now, I'd say Sifu is pretty close up there as well. But I think this was more challenging. This really took it out of me, man. So, dude, let me tell you, and I'll move on after this, but just to close this out, last night when I was facing the last boss, dude, I was getting I never get this way, man. I'm 30 years old now. I don't get this way with games, but dude, my blood pressure was rising, and I was yelling, I was swearing. I'm like, fuck this fucking game. I'm like, I'm done. This is bullshit. I hate this game. That's the level it got me to. And because of that, when I actually did it this morning, I was like, dude, the level of the dopamine rush I got. This is why we play games, man. And highly recommend Lies of P. I don't know that I could recommend platinuming it. If you're going to try to platinum it or get all the achievements or whatever, just be prepared for a serious challenge. But yeah, I turned 8 years old again, man. Devil Shooter saying the Bunny Brotherhood was pissing you off last night. Yeah, they were tough too, man. But it's funny because in New Game Plus, I kept going into these boss battles that I had such a hard time with my first time around playing. And New Game Plus, dude, I was just wrecking them, man. I was just tearing through them. But I guess, the last couple bosses of the game really are like they're just tough, man. Like it just no matter how good your build is, and don't get me wrong, like you can I don't want to say cheese it because I don't think there's a strategy in this game that necessarily is cheesing anything, but they give you the tools to like if you put them together in the right order, and that's what I had to do. I had to use some throwables. I had to use the um for the Legion arm. I had to use the shield a lot because it's like, man, like I have to basically upgrade it and spear the dude to death while I'm holding the shield up, trying so hard not to get one hit. But yeah, just wanted to express my elation with. I feel very proud, honestly. Like I couldn't be more proud of Liza P being my first platinum for 2024, and I think we're off to a really good start here. And we have Chris B. Chris B comes in and drops another 5 membership gifts for this community, bringing us up to 10 total memberships gifted today. Chris, thank you so much, my friend, for the support and for gifting out those memberships. Amazing to see. So W's flowing in the chat for our friend Chris, who's been showing some amazing support to the channel. Let me add that to the counter here. I'm going to engage with the chat for just another moment here, and then we're going to dive into the Xbox topic so I can read New Soul 9's super chats. Excuse me. Did I record it? So I was so caught up in the heat of the moment, dude. I literally jumped out of my seat and I was like running around, and I had to go tell Mrs. MBG because I was like telling her last night, like, I don't think I can do this game, man. And I didn't. So unfortunately, I forgot to record those actual like final battles, but I did record the platinum popping. Well, because I had it set to auto record. So if you go to my Twitter account, I did post that up there. But I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to play Liza P anymore at this point. I think I'll be ready to move on. I think I am ready to move on because to me that was like the end point, just getting that final trophy to pop. And actually, funny enough, the final trophy I ended up getting was the trophy to obtain all normal weapons. So what I had to do was I did have to back up my save, and I had to replay the ending, but choose not to fight the optional boss. And then you get the option to start another New Game Plus 3. And then I just had to play through the first area because I forgot to buy like the first 2 base weapons from the first merchant. By the way, does Yang Ye do the voice of the merchants in this game? Because like I've been going to the merchants a lot more to buy stuff, and I'm like, that sounds like Yang Ye. Like I'm pretty sure that's Yang Ye doing the voice of the merchants in this game. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. Maybe somebody can confirm that for me. Just really random, Put that together so late in the game. But thank you for listening to me kind of gush here a little bit about Liza P. We are going to... Yeah, it does have DLC coming, apparently. I think I'll play that for sure. Yeah. I struggle with DLC because the thing is, once I move on from a game, I always struggle to go back. Like, I wish the DLC was releasing right now because I feel like I'm at my peak with this game and I could just enjoy it thoroughly. Sometimes when DLC comes out for a game later on, I feel like I have to relearn it, and that can be quite daunting to me. But all right. So yeah, that's the first topic, talking about Liza P. What I want to do now is move on to talking about the situation with Microsoft and Xbox and what's going on with apparently some Microsoft first-party exclusives rumored to be making their way to PS5 very soon. And also rumors that more are coming. So I'm going to start off by... So again, New Soul 9, I'm going to read your super chats, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read this article first just to establish the baseline so everybody knows what we're talking about. And then I'm going to segue into your super chats. Am I going to try out Helldivers 2? Absolutely. Yeah, I saw there was a little bit of confusion Yesterday during CES, there was a typo where it said Helldivers 2 is coming out February 28th. And so a lot of people thought that the game just kind of low key got delayed. It was a typo, it was a mistake. The game is still confirmed for February 8th. They kind of started marketing it today. So, all right, here's the article. Where's it at? So I have this article here from PlayStation Lifestyle. It says Sea of Thieves PS5 version is also rumored alongside Hi-Fi Rush PS5 version. Following yesterday's reports that Hi-Fi Rush is potentially headed to PlayStation and possibly Nintendo Switch, an insider has claimed to have heard that it's Rare's Sea of Thieves that will release on PS5 as well. Reports have cropped up that Microsoft is reevaluating its strategy, opting to release some Xbox exclusives from its catalog on rival platforms. Yesterday's speculation of a Hi-Fi Rush PS5 release originally seemed to just be an educated guess rather than a confirmation, as several credible outlets and insiders claimed that a critically acclaimed Xbox game considered Game of the Year material was headed to a rival platform. But then a Reset Era user with a good track record specifically alluded to a Hi-Fi Rush Nintendo Switch release. Now, journalist and insider Jeff Grubb has claimed that it's likely Sea of Thieves from Microsoft is planning to release on PlayStation 5 and potentially the Switch, according to what he's heard. Quote, when I first started hearing these rumors, I was like, oh, this is probably about Sea of Thieves because I've heard that could come to Switch and PlayStation, end quote. This is what he said on his podcast. And Jeff Grubb, as well as many others, and this is the important part with this rumor. Jeff Grubb, among many other, I guess, insiders or people who would have sources, they're all coming out and they're basically saying the same thing. And that is that you're going to see more of this from Microsoft. And Jez Corden from Windows Central did a report where he confirmed with his own sources, trusted sources, that Microsoft is now going to start the process of going into their back catalog of games and releasing them on PS5 and Switch. Now, I also want to add this to the conversation just to make sure we're all on the same page. Apparently, because it's been kind of hard to follow all of these different rumors, they're all cropping up at the same time. Apparently, another insider claims that the Switch version of Hi-Fi Rush was actually canceled and it's just going to be coming to PS5. And there's also a little bit more info about Sea of Thieves, where apparently Sea of Thieves is one of these games where Microsoft is talking about it, but there's like no one can seemingly confirm if it got the green light. But if it is coming to PS5, it's apparently going to be coming early this year. So, we could be seeing a situation where a first-party studio, Rare, is releasing their game on the PS5, that being Sea of Thieves. It is a live service game on the PS5. I mean, it's just crazy to think that potentially you could, I'm assuming they'll do like physical copies. You could buy a physical copy of Sea of Thieves with trophies and possibly a platinum. And you just got to ask yourself at that point, like, how deep does this rabbit hole go, right? If this is what Microsoft is planning to do. And so I'm now going to read the super chats, starting with New Soul 9. He dropped quite a few here. So first off, New Soul, thank you so much, man. I mean, really, the generosity, the support, this is why I'm able to do this. You say here, MBG, Clobril's comment about Xbox losing its identity makes no logical sense to me. I'll explain how. Xbox will still hold an identity because the games that PlayStation and Nintendo gamers are enjoying so much came from an Xbox studio. I'll give this other example. That's like me being a chef and I decided to share my recipe with millions of other restaurants. You might say you and your restaurant don't have an identity anymore because you didn't keep that recipe for yourself. That's incorrect. I still hold an identity in the sense that I'm technically the creator of that recipe/food that you are still enjoying, and no one can take that from me. So just like Xbox is still going to have an identity in the sense that they are the creator and they can do it. You're saying, let me reread this last part. So just like Xbox is still going to have an identity in the sense that they are the creator to do them owning that studio. And I picked that. So New Soul 9, you corrected one of the things you said here. I picked that up where you're saying, take that away from me. And New Soul, I also want to give you a shout out, man, because you it looks like not only did you re-up your membership, you actually upgraded your membership to Play Has No Limits Plus, which is the highest tier. So, New Soul, again, thank you so much for all the support. And see, I appreciate you highlighting this because this is a very large part of the conversation that we're going to have today because you've been seeing a lot of different opinions online. And yes, I did in my video yesterday. I read about, or not about, I read the post that Clobreel put out. Now, for those who don't know who Clobreel is, he is a Xbox influencer. He's pretty much known on X and Twitter. He has a following of 150,000 people, I think, or something. So that's all he covers is Xbox. So he's a passionate Xbox fan. And he put out this extensive post, which I'm not going to read it again here. You can check out that video if you want it word for word. But essentially what he was saying is kind of that not only is it that Xbox is kind of losing its identity, but something else he pointed out, New Soul, is that he kind of framed it in the sense that if Microsoft is really going to start putting their games on PS5 and embracing PlayStation and Nintendo, their rivals, or what are supposed to be their rivals, it's going to hurt their own ecosystem. It's going to make people less inclined to, well, you know what? Maybe I won't go to Xbox. Not even buy an Xbox console, but I just won't go to Xbox because if I stay with PlayStation, if I stay with Nintendo, well, eventually I can get Xbox games. Now, what does that sound like to you? I'll tell you exactly what that sounds like to me. That sounds like the exact situation we currently find Sony in, just with different hardware, different platforms. Look at the way Sony handles their own first-party games. Hey, we're embracing PC. PC was once a competitor to PlayStation. Now we don't view it that way. Are we dropping all of our games on there day one? No, we're not. Maybe some live service games, maybe some multiplayer games, but games like Spider-Man, games like Horizon, games like The Last of Us, games like God of War, games that you would have never imagined coming to PC are now available on PC. And now we are at a point with PlayStation where, take Spider-Man 2, for example. Spider-Man 2 is going to release on PC. Maybe next year, maybe a little bit longer after that. We are at a point where anytime Sony releases a new first-party exclusive, we are anticipating, we are expecting it will make its way to PC. Microsoft is seemingly getting ready to do that exact same thing, except replace PC with PS5 and possibly the Nintendo Switch. And this is what makes this conversation so fascinating because I agree with what you're saying, News09, in that it's not that Xbox loses their identity, but what it does seemingly reaffirm is their stance on the console market. I think to a lot of people, and this is how I felt for a long time. I don't know that I feel this way now, though, to be honest. I think I felt this way for a while, but as Microsoft continued to go in the direction that they're going in, and just make it crystal clear that the console's not the priority anymore. I always viewed Xbox's identity as it is tethered to the console. It'll always be ironic to me that the Xbox name, Xbox, it's literally the box, the console, and they're the first one to seemingly really start distancing themselves from that model, or at least branch out in a significant way. And for me, and I think for a lot of other gamers, that was their identity, right? It is Halo, yes. It is Gears, yes. It is Forza, but it's the Xbox console too, right? Like that's what Xbox started as. That's what it is. And I think when Microsoft, in the middle of the Xbox One generation, decided they're going to start transitioning to a different type of model, starting with putting their games on PC day and date, and then eventually segueing into Game Pass, and now going beyond that with now we want to be everywhere. Now we're even going to start publishing our games on other rival consoles potentially, right? That's the rumor. It just solidifies their stance when it comes to the console market, and that is it's just not their priority to any extent. Like, it's there for people who want it. If you want to buy a Series X or a Series S, it's there. Is there going to be a next generation Xbox? Yes, there is. It's there if you want it. Hey, guess what? Games like, and this is where I wanted to kind of talk about the Xbox Direct. You want to play games like Hellblade, Avowed. Apparently, the Indiana Jones game is going to show up. I'm assuming that's going to be a Microsoft exclusive. I think that was confirmed to be a Microsoft exclusive. You want to play these games, like, this is where I think PlayStation, not just PlayStation fans, but everybody in general, like mainly certain groups, certain circles on the internet, they need to calm down. And people are talking about this as if, damn, dude, now I can just play every Xbox game on my PlayStation or on my Switch or Switch 2 potentially. And it's like, pump the brakes, because, I don't know if PlayStation fans on the internet right now, I'm not talking about you guys, but certain takes I've seen out there, I don't know if they realize this, but do you not see that you sound just like the same PC players that you criticized for saying, I'll just wait for Sony to release their games on PC? You sound the exact same way. And so it highlights a shift, and that's why I put this in my title, a big shift in this industry where these big names like Sony and Microsoft are just beginning to enter different territory that they were just totally against at one point, but as the gaming industry has evolved and changed, as the times have changed, as the technology has changed, as the industry has grown in every way, right? Not just the amount of people involved in the industry, but how much it costs to develop games now, how long it takes games to be developed. It almost seems like this was going to be an eventuality and an inevitability to a certain extent. And I think that there was always going to be those kind of growing pains, starting with Microsoft. Like, let's not forget, I didn't forget, when Microsoft first announced games like Quantum Break and stuff like that are launching day and date on PC. There were, granted, I don't know that there was a lot, but there was a small but vocal group of Xbox fans that were against that. They were like, no, we don't want this. This is a bad idea. And Microsoft had to push back against that, or not push back against it, but just truck on through it, And then eventually, as time went on, and it became clear that that's what Microsoft is doing, that is part of their strategy. That's not changing. Xbox fans started to kind of rally around that and be like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe this is fine. And it turns out it is fine. And the same exact thing happened with PlayStation, where PlayStation comes out and they're, during the Jim Ryan era, out of nowhere, from the top ropes, Jim Ryan coming in with the elbow. We're putting our games at PC. And we saw some of the crazy meltdowns that some PlayStation fans had. I'll never forget, dude, seeing my Twitter timeline where I know it was like fake and show, but it was still pretty funny, where I'm like, I saw somebody put like their PlayStation in their toilet or some shit. And I'm like, this is insanity. Like, this is not real. This is not how normal people function. But it was jarring for a portion of the fan base because they just did not see that coming. They didn't expect that. And now that years have passed, let me ask you guys, and not just you, but this is a question I pose to any fan out there, right? If you are excited for, I would say Wolverine, but well, yeah, Wolverine, I guess, is a great example. It feels weird talking about Wolverine now because of the leaks. I'm not going to lie, but one of the things that the leaks confirmed, unsurprisingly, is there's a PC version of Wolverine that's planned. Now, the release year for Wolverine is apparently going to be 2026. I play on PS5. I'm going to get a PS5 Pro. I'll answer this question, and then I'll hand the same question off to you guys. The question is, knowing I have a PC capable of gaming, knowing that Sony is going to eventually release Wolverine on the PC, maybe a year later, maybe a year and a half later, something along those lines, am I going to wait and play it on my PC? The answer is no. And the answer is simple. It's because I want to be there day one. That's a game I'm very excited about. To me, that's a must buy. Now, if it released day and date on PC, I'd probably still play it on console because I just like the console experience. But that's how Microsoft. That's how Sony's handling it. Where it's like, for me, it's an easy answer. I'm just gonna get it as soon as it's available on PlayStation 5. And the fact that it is going to make its way to PC eventually doesn't change that. It doesn't impact that for me. And I just have to ask that question. I have to pose that question to you guys as well and to other people, because this is what we are apparently going to start seeing with Microsoft. Now, I don't feel confident right now in saying that, hey, Hellblade 2, timed exclusive. Starfield, timed exclusive. I have no idea. No one knows. I don't even know if Microsoft knows themselves. They might just be experimenting. I feel pretty confident in what we're hearing about Hi-Fi Rush with Sea of Thieves, because we talked about this late last year. We talked about how Xbox's CFO really seemed to hint at expanding as a third-party publisher. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella hinted at this himself late last year. And I speculated pretty heavily, and I'm sure you guys remember these streams where I was like, I think Microsoft might be gearing up to go full third-party. But that was speculation. Now, a couple months later, we're in territory where suddenly we're having conversations about, oh yeah, some Microsoft games are coming to PS5. And naturally, it's going to cause hysteria with some groups. Some Xbox fans are melting down, being like, you shouldn't do this. This is a mistake. Others are like, well, of course they were going to do this. But in reality, it's like, there's no issue here for literally anybody. In fact, if there was one singular issue I could potentially identify here, and even then, I'm pushing the envelope here. It would actually be with Sony, in that if Microsoft really does what some people think they're going to do, which is, oh, this is the beginning of the end, right? Where they're going to slowly segue into becoming a full-blown third-party publisher, towards like 4 or 5 years from now, next generation, every Xbox game is going to drop day one on PS5 and Switch. I don't believe that. But if that's where they are headed, my concern turns to Sony. And suddenly, that's that was a main competitor in Microsoft within the console space. That is, they're out. They're not a competitor anymore. So that just leaves Sony and Nintendo. That's one less major competitor in the console space in a meaningful way. That's not good for anybody. Well, it depends on how you look at it, because it's like, it's hard to say that as like, it's not good for anybody. Well, but you are getting more games on different platforms. So it's kind of a catch-22, if you get what I'm saying, where there's good and there's bad. But generally speaking, right now, based off of what we know, based off of this rumor, again, it's pertaining to the back catalog of Microsoft games. This is not bad. This is not bad for PlayStation users. This is not bad for Switch users. And this is not bad for Xbox users either. Because guess what? There's going to be an Xbox Developer Direct on January 18th. Games from Microsoft Studios that are going to be featured: Hellblade 2, Indiana Jones, and it looks like Avowed is going to show up. Do you think these games are going to be announced for PS5? You like, they're not. They're not. They're going to be exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem. If you want to play Hellblade 2, if you want to play Avowed, you're going to have to subscribe to Game Pass or buy it on the Xbox Store, or maybe Steam. But if you're on PS5, if you're on Switch, well, I don't know that any of these games could run on Switch necessarily. But no, they won't be. And that's why it's like, if you're an Xbox player, because I've been seeing this floating around, like from certain Xbox fans, where they're like, and it's not a lot, but there's some where they're making it seem like this is a bad thing. It's like, but what are you losing here? I don't think you're losing anything. Now, it would be a different conversation if Microsoft came out tomorrow and was like, yeah, Hellblade 2 is going to drop day one on PS5 as well. Then I could see the Xbox fans who purchase consoles and stuff like that being like, yo, what the fuck? Like that would be like a hold on now moment. And we got Hellbound 1981, another legend coming in, dropping 5 more membership gifts. Hellbound, thank you so much, my friend. I see W's already flowing in the chat. Hellbound brings us up to 15 members on the day. So we are now 10 away from hitting our goal, which is great. By the way, guys, we have over 500 people here. Please take a second out of your day, just 1 second, and hit that like button. We are at 151 likes. If we could get to 200, that would be incredible. I have a couple more super chats here, and look, I want to read the rest of these super chats, but I just want to make sure I get my point across as clearly as I can. I understand. Trust me, I am a console fan first and foremost. I grew up playing on video game consoles. I like the console experience, and part of what I grew up with and still expect today, at least to some extent, are exclusives. Exclusives are never going to go away fully. Like they just can't. They like if you're talking about an ecosystem, a platform holder, there has to be just at least something there that's unique to that to differentiate it. And it's not about necessarily losing the identity as much as it's about you need to make sure you offer something that makes you stand out from the crowd. Anything, right? That's always going to be needed. Even if in the far future, when everybody's streaming games and beaming them right to their brain or whatever, like it's still going to be needed for people to choose where they want to play, or who they want to give their money to. But what's just so what's so tough about this is how it is such a massive shift. It is. This is unprecedented if it's true. And I don't mean to talk about this as if it's confirmed officially, because it might not be. Microsoft may see the response right now and be like, you know what? Never mind. Too risky. Cancel it. We're just going to move on. So don't walk away from this as me saying this is confirmed. It's just, it seems like there's a lot of smoke right now. And it's just, we're going to see the fire any moment. And if we do, it's just such an abrupt and massive shift in where we were to where we are now. And it's like all the things that have occurred to get us to this moment. If you're somebody who had a certain expectation for the console experience, right? I mean, your expectations have to change, or they have already changed because the industry is changing. I don't know that I feel confident in saying that, oh, well, if Microsoft is going to become like, I want to flip this conversation on its head for just a moment, because I think this is going to be a good thing to do for the sake of having a well-rounded conversation. This is purely a hypothetical, and I just want to make that clear. Like, there are no rumors of this, and it seems very, very, very unlikely this is going to happen. But New Soul 9 mentioned Clobrill's post. One of the things that Clobrill said in his post is that this is a one-way street for Microsoft, and that's why he thinks they shouldn't do it. Because Microsoft, you can take some of your games like Sea of Thieves and whatever, your back catalog, older Gears games maybe one day, and put them on PlayStation and Switch. But Nintendo and Sony, they're never going to give you their games. They're never going to do it. You're never going to see God of War. You're never going to see The Last of Us on Xbox. You're never going to see a Nintendo game. Now, I'm not going to talk about Nintendo, because I'll tell you right now, I don't think Nintendo's doing anything. Nobody's getting anything from Nintendo. That I feel 100% certain about, at least for now. But let's look at this hypothetical. What if Microsoft gets pretty aggressive here? And before you know it, every couple of months they're announcing like a couple games here and there from their back catalog. Games from the Xbox One generation, right? Maybe even some games that came out this generation, but years have went by. I mean, let's flash forward to 2026 and Microsoft announces, hey, Starfield is coming to PS5. What if this changes something within Sony, where Sony doesn't feel like Microsoft is really a threat anymore in the console space? Because, I mean, you really, I mean, at that point, it's like, I don't know. How do you even view them as a threat? I guess what I'm trying to say is, what if it influences Sony to where Sony maybe sits back, the new CEO, whoever that's going to be, and says, what if we did release God of War 2018 on Xbox, on the Xbox ecosystem, on the Xbox storefront? What if we did that? Again, I know it's a crazy hypothetical, and I know that right now there's no signs that that would ever happen, but it's interesting to think, like, what if we end up seeing that this is the beginning of a shift that we're going to see across the board, where these companies are, like, maybe at some point going to realize that they can have their cake and eat it too. Because I said this in my video yesterday, and I really pondered it for a while, and I kind of walked it back in my own mind, because I'm like, wait a second, hold on. If there's one thing we learned about Sony in these recent leaks, is that they are experimenting. Like, I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but when we went over all the information about, that all the details, business-wise, all the business decisions that Sony was making, one thing that became clear is they are absolutely willing to experiment, at least in most areas. And they've been doing a lot of experimentation this generation. I just wonder if at some point both Microsoft and Sony, but it would be Microsoft that does it first, they just kind of realize, like, taking these older games that are not selling anymore, that are not selling consoles, that are not bringing people into the ecosystem, well, we put them on PC, but what if we just throw them on the other console? What then? Like, will that stop people from buying PlayStations? It could. It absolutely could. I don't know. We don't know the answers to these questions, but it's just so fascinating to think that, like, Microsoft is the first one to really try something like this if they go through with it. And if they can, and this is the real question, right? This is the real question. If this is something that Microsoft does pursue aggressively, and something we really see them kind of expand upon going into 2024 and 2025, but they make it clear, oh yeah, we're putting this game and that game and this game on PlayStation, on Switch. We're gonna get those sales. But yeah, no, we're not dropping Hellblade 2. That's Xbox. Elder Scrolls 6, yeah, that's Xbox. The next Doom game, that's Xbox. But the audience is they're gonna feel, but well, hold on though. But it's gonna come eventually, right? Like it's gonna eventually come to PlayStation and Nintendo, because that's what you're doing with all your older games. So when these games get old enough, you're gonna bring them over. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, Microsoft does run the risk, and it depends on if they see it as a risk or not, of conditioning gamers to where you don't have to come to our ecosystem, you can just wait. But again, Sony is doing that exact same thing right now. Granted, there are no PlayStation games on Xbox. We know that. But by Sony putting their games on PC as consistently as they have, like, they have effectively communicated to PC players, if you wait, you will get it. And it's not like, it's not like if you buy a PC to play PlayStation games versus if you buy a PlayStation 5 to play PlayStation games. It is still very different. It is still very different. It's not like you're going to have the entire PlayStation library, not even close. Not even close. But in a way, it's like these things are more similar than I think people might realize. And I think at the end of the day, and this is the important part that I want to communicate, an important part of this conversation that I want to effectively get across, is that this, more than anything, truly does hurt. If it does hurt anything, I don't think it hurts anything that badly. I'll put it to you. I'll word it this way. This, to me, doesn't hurt something that isn't basically already, I don't want to say dead, but just not thriving, I guess we could say. This hurts, if anything, the Xbox console. And the reason why I say that is because by Microsoft like extending that olive branch to Sony and to Nintendo, knowing that they might not do it back. I don't think Microsoft is planning to release any of their games on PlayStation with the hope that, well, maybe they'll bring some of their games over to us. I don't think they're doing that. I think they think maybe it could inspire them, but probably not. You are sending a message to your console buyers, though, and that is, well, we might start giving some of your games away to the other console. Now, granted, older games that you probably didn't buy this console for in the first place. And that could be it could be. Again, I have to put question marks everywhere here because I don't know how problematic that could really be for a console that's already struggling to sell. Like really struggling. This is where Microsoft may have just said, screw it, what do we have to lose here? You know? I really think that this is the first clear sign of Microsoft beginning to test the waters as a third-party publisher and simultaneously not say, but really convey the message in a powerful way, in a more powerful way than they ever have, that if you want the Xbox console, it's there. Okay? Like we would like you to buy one. We just don't care if you do. We're in this to make as much money as we can. I think that's a powerful thing they're about to convey if they do go through with this. And that's going to be fascinating to see because it might surprise the results might surprise us. Who knows? Maybe Xbox console sales won't be affected either way. It's not selling any better or any worse. It's just the same. Maybe it'll sell worse. We don't know. Very interesting stuff, though, guys. Very, very interesting stuff. Now, I apologize keeping everybody waiting. Got quite a few super chats here. Echo Spiracy, member for 7 months, says, MBG, I think it's time we have a Spider-Man 2 discussion members lounge. I don't know, man. I wanted to discuss Spider-Man 2, but I'll put it to you this way. If I discuss Spider-Man 2 in depth, it's going to happen way later, as in I replay it or revisit it, because I did talk about it quite extensively, but I didn't enjoy it that much. Like, I'll be honest with you, it's not that I didn't enjoy my time with it. Like, I had fun playing it, but man, it was just forgettable, except for one thing that happened in that game that I did talk about quite extensively. I did like Venom in that game, but everything else, I'll be completely frank with you, it's just like, yeah, it was a fun time and a well-made game, and I platinumed it, and I'm like, okay, and then I just moved on, and I there's nothing that sticks out to me. I'm just kind of at a point with Spider-Man 2 where it's like, well, I'm ready for Wolverine, and I'm way more excited for Wolverine. Maybe Spider-Man 3 I'll feel differently about, but yeah, Kraven was cool too. I think Kraven was a little bit underutilized from a writing perspective, to be honest. But he was pretty cool. I like the symbiote suit, but for me, Spider-Man 2 is more of like it was more about the gameplay than the story. And the story was okay, not very memorable in my opinion. And I'm just kind of at a point with Spider-Man where it's like, yeah, we'll get a Spider-Man 3. Apparently, there's a Venom game coming. To me, the Venom game sounds pretty cool. Finish saying, check Paul Tassi's article. I'll bring that up. Maybe we can read that a little bit later. But yeah, I don't know that I'm going to have an extensive discussion on Spider-Man 2 anytime soon. Just because truthfully speaking, it's just because I don't know what else I have to say about it. That's all. Like, that's all it comes down to. I just don't know how much else I have to say about it that I haven't already said. Devil Shooter saying, MBG, how? They set up the events for Kraven very nicely. I guess what I mean is when it comes to Kraven, Devil Shooter, to answer your question, they do kind of flesh him out enough. But I don't know. I guess I was just kind of surprised that, like, again, without getting into spoiler territory, the way I'll word it is I thought that he was going to play a bigger role for a longer period of time, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying it was like they handled it poorly. I'm just saying it's like it. My expectations for Craven were a little bit different, but I didn't. I enjoyed Craven as a villain. I think he was fine. I liked Venom a lot though. Venom was fun. All right, let me see here. We got Doolin Jones. He says, I've been playing Horizon 2 on my PlayStation Portal on an Uber taxi to go to dinner, taking me around an hour and 30 minutes journey to get there. Got earbuds equipped too. I love it so much. You love this device so much. Go and get it, MBG. Dude, I would have purchased a Portal by now if I could find one that's not being scalped. Like, I really thought these would be available to purchase by now. But Doolin, that's actually really cool to hear. I don't know. I'm assuming if you were playing this game, you're saying you took an Uber, was an hour and a half ride. So you took your PS Portal and you got the earbuds. I'm assuming if you're saying this, it was a good experience overall and you didn't have a ton of lag, which is interesting. They don't really do stuff like that though. So that's an interesting use case, a very interesting use case. Don't know that I would use a Portal in that way because I just don't do things like that. But I'm happy to hear it, Doolin Jones. I will say I did ask on Twitter recently anybody who picked up a PlayStation Portal how it's been, and I got a lot of positive feedback, like way more than I was expecting. I was like reading through some of those replies, and people were showing off themselves using it. And I'll tell you, man, the PlayStation Portal, even though it may not be a device for everybody, for the people it's for, they really love it. That seems pretty clear to me. So, let's see. Next up, we have Disco Cobra 2013. Thank you so much for the $20 donation, man. You're saying, do you recommend a game like Liza P to more casual players? Not really into the Soulsborne games. I still haven't finished Spider-Man 2 yet. No games grabbing my attention like Rockstar games. Don't really trophy hunt. That's a great question, Disco Cobra. And here's what I'll say. Well, first, I would say if you have zero experience with any Soulsborne games, like if you've never played like a Soulsborne title at all, it would be difficult. I know this sounds crazy, but I would honestly recommend like maybe try it through Game Pass if you're able to, just because it's cheap to subscribe for 1 month and assuming it's on there, and see if it's for you. Right? No, sorry. Scratch that. Isn't there a demo? Hold on. Did they remove the demo? If they still have the demo, download the demo. I know there was a demo because I played it, but I don't know if they removed it. I think I heard somewhere when the game launched they removed it. Unless I'm wrong about that. If they didn't remove the demo, Disco, that's what I recommend. Just, the demo for Liza P is long enough to where it'll tell you what type of game it is. You'll know the mechanics. You'll have a very good idea. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I know they had a demo because I played it. So with that in mind, you're saying for like casuals, like if you're a more casual gamer. See, it's tough because it's like I want to recommend giving a game like Liza P a try if you're a more casual gamer, because it might kind of open you up to trying these type of games, right? Like everybody has to have their first experience with a Soulsborne, and it is challenging, but it's not like in my experience, unless you're going for the platinum or until you get to the very end, it doesn't become like ridiculously challenging. So Disco Cobra, I guess the best way I could answer this, because I know I seem kind of torn here, is I would recommend trying it if it's within your means to do so. If you can download the demo, give it a fair shot, and you'll know after you finish that demo, if you finish it, whether it's for you. But at the same time, if you are like really leaning more towards the more casual side where you're just not really into anything that can present too much of a challenge, you're not really into games that kind of require you to really kind of learn the mechanics and learn the systems, as in like there's many different things you can choose from and do here, maybe then I would say it might not be for you. But it's hard for me not to recommend it, honestly. I have a bias towards it at this point because I think it's so good. But yeah, download that demo, man. And if you do, Disco Cobra, if you do download the demo, you have to come back and let me know what you think of it, whether it's for you or not. Because I'll be honest, like my first Souls experience was Dark Souls 1. And when I first heard about Dark Souls, I didn't even know about Dark Souls 1. It's my brother-in-law who told me about it and was showing it to me, and I'm like, yeah, that's not my kind of thing. But then I remember like I read an article, I think it was in Game Informer or something about Dark Souls, and I was like, well, that actually sounds kind of interesting. And the interesting thing about Dark Souls for me is that it was 100% a game that I would have never touched or played and just did not speak to me from a surface level. But once my brother-in-law started like telling me about it and describing it to me, and then I read these articles and I watched gameplay, I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. It became one of my favorite games of all time. So, it's just like the old saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover. Sometimes you just got to get in there, give these things a try for yourself. Um, we have King Sam, a member for 8 months. Appreciate that, buddy. Saying, love Hi-Fi Rush. Would love it to come to PS5 with a physical copy. Would go for the platinum. Great game. Also, on to Sekiro next, MBG. I will say, completing Lies of P or platinuming Lies of P has given me much more confidence in my ability to to overcome the challenge that I clearly faced with Sekiro. I definitely think I can do it. I just don't know that I'm going to do it right now. I did talk about this recently. If I play Sekiro again, you won't know about it until I beat it. To be clear, I think one of the reasons why I couldn't get into Sekiro was because of the approach I took with it, where I'm like, I'm going to record myself playing it for the first time. Uh, People want to hear my thoughts on it. And I was just so focused on the audience side of things and the presenting side of it that I think it took away from me really actually trying to learn the game and figure it out. You're saying Sekiro is way harder than Lies of P? Yeah, see, that's what's fascinating to me. I've heard both sides of it. I've heard people say that if you could beat Lies of P, you can definitely beat Sekiro. But I've also heard that no, Sekiro is actually way harder than Lies of P. I will say something about Lies of P that I did appreciate is there are many different ways you can tackle combat and overcoming a challenge. To whereas I get the feeling with Sekiro, it leans more towards like you really do just have to learn every single like frame or all the frames, and master that side of it. Sekiro has double the length of a parry window. Really? That's fat. If that's true, that's crazy to me. Because I guess I wouldn't have thought that. But then again, I wasn't doing too much parrying in Lies of P overall. I was doing some, but that wasn't my main way of tackling enemies and challenges. Have I played Trepang 2? No, I'm not even sure what that game is. I'd have to look into that. All right, let me see. So thank you for that, King Sam. We have Solo in it with a $20 super chat. So thank you so much for that, my friend. You're saying, I don't think it's a far stretch to say Xbox is going third party. Number one, Game Pass has substituted the Xbox name. Two, they clearly say many times they want to be on all devices. And three, they're pushing the cloud and subscription game model. Well, Solo in it, I think this logic adds up pretty nicely here, right? Because everything that you just listed is 100% true. And this is where I still maintain that there are two huge differentiating factors, or maybe three, right? When it comes to the way Sony approaches this versus the way Microsoft does. You start here with number one, Game Pass has substituted the Xbox name. We don't see Sony lean into that at all, right? Sony's always PS5, PlayStation, PS5. But Sony knows that when people think of PlayStation, they think of a console. Microsoft has kind of taken a different direction where it's like, yeah, Xbox is the brand, and I'd say most people still refer to their Microsoft games as Xbox games, Xbox exclusives, but it is true that they very much have tried to position the Game Pass name up front, right? They want it in your face like Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass, even to the point where I see so many people talk about Game Pass. Even I think at times I've seen Microsoft talk about Game Pass where they don't even call it Xbox Game Pass. They just call it Game Pass. So there's that, right? Clear distinction between Sony and Microsoft. Now you're saying here they clearly say many times that they want to be on all devices. This is where I feel like Sony and Microsoft do have a similar intention and goal, but the way that they've been approaching it is vastly different. Where on Microsoft's side of things, they have been aggressively saying, we want to be here. We're not hiding it. We're actually trying aggressively to be everywhere. And that's what you can expect. I feel like on the Sony side of things, Sony has been hinting more and more as the years go on that they want to be on other devices, that they want to try to expand. I mean, you recall Jim Ryan's comment where he's like, I'd love it if hundreds of millions of people could play our games and stuff like that. And then we have it leaked out with the Insomniac hack that, oh, Sony does want to at least take PlayStation Plus and put that everywhere. They want PlayStation Plus to be on mobile, on PC, on smart TVs, just like Microsoft with Game Pass, right? So it's like there's a similarity there, but the way in which I don't want to say Sony's hiding it, but Sony's not like out here kind of putting that out front, saying like, "Hey guys, check this out." It's just kind of something that's in the background. And the third thing you say is they're pushing the cloud and subscription game model. Yeah, so this is where we can see a very demonstrable difference, possibly the biggest difference between Sony and Microsoft, and that is that Sony has made it clear. And this is fascinating to bring up. People, I think for a while, and I think I've even believed this, believe that Sony isn't going to, well, I do believe this, to be clear, because it's been proven. People made the assumption that, well, Sony isn't putting their games day one into PlayStation Plus. They're not trying to match Game Pass because they're greedy. That was the assumption. Sony came out and said, no, we're not doing that because we can't afford to do that. We can't. Our games are way too expensive and we need those sales. And that created a bit of a divide where it's like, okay, who do you believe? Do you believe Sony when they say this, or do you believe the other people, maybe some people on the internet that are saying, no, they're just greedy? Well, it turns out that we did get the data, right? We got the data from the Insomniac hack that if you delve deep enough into that data, it literally showed you that Sony was like they broke down the numbers. We can't put this on PlayStation Plus because we won't make any money on it. Like, we will lose money. It is factually, objectively unsustainable for them. And I think that this is the conundrum that both Sony and Microsoft face. But I think the big difference here is that Microsoft is a multi-trillion-dollar company backing the Xbox brand. Sony is a multi-billion-dollar company, very large. But as we've clearly seen with this data leak and with everything that we're now learning, is that, man, Sony is afraid. They are absolutely afraid of one of their games flopping. They are getting very nervous, rightfully so, about, oh my God, why are our budgets so high? Like, how do we get this under control? And you could tell they're very scared because it's like it's reaching such a volatile level that if a game fails commercially and doesn't sell, they're going to feel that, like, big time on their bottom line. And it's not that Microsoft doesn't feel that, but it's like Microsoft has felt that this entire time, but they were able to feel that and say it doesn't matter because it's in the name of Game Pass. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is what's fascinating about it, is that, like, everything Microsoft does is in the name of, well, if we can convert a game sale to a game subscriber or a Game Pass subscriber, that's worth it. That's worth it. Like, that customer has the potential to be more valuable in the long run. The problem with this, in at least for Sony, is that like I don't know. I guess from Sony's perspective, it's not that it wouldn't be true for them as well if they can hit a certain number, but I just think that that number's so high that Sony is like this. This is probably not going to work. You know what I mean? I think it was what Sean Layden that said, and I think he said this after he left Sony. He was like, the only way a sub model is going to work with big AAA games is you're going to need like 500 million subscribers for this thing to work, like consistently, sustainably, like just some ridiculous number. And that's where I think that there is something to be said about the Game Pass model, the number of Game Pass subscribers, and Microsoft's willingness to now potentially take some of their back catalog games and start releasing them as premium releases on the rival consoles. I don't know that it means that Game Pass isn't working or that they're falling behind, or I've seen some wild takes out there. I guess it's not that wild, but I've seen some people basically saying that this is confirmation. Like these rumors and the fact that this is starting to happen is confirmation that the Game Pass model isn't working. Like this is plan C, basically. Game Pass was plan B. Game Pass didn't work. Now this is plan C. Maybe. I don't know that. Yeah, I feel like it's still way too soon. I think we need to keep in mind that they still have a lot of Game Pass subscribers. But one of the things that Microsoft did emphasize during the ABK trial is that they have to hit goals. Like they have a certain number of subscribers that they have to hit as the years go on. I think like 2027 was the year where they got to hit like 70 million or something, or like close to 100 million. And they need to move that needle like aggressively. And it's interesting because it's like, well, why is that? And it's like, well, because these games are expensive to make. Because even though, and I've tried to explain this to people before, where it's like, even though Microsoft is a multi-trillion-dollar company that can just float Xbox as long as they need to, they're a corporation that's looking to drive profit. They're not a charity. They're not just going to, you know what I mean? Like they're not just going to be okay with Xbox losing money year after year after year, because that's going to lead to them losing shareholders. And that's the last thing they want. They want to make shareholders happy. You make shareholders happy by driving a profitable business from top to bottom. Even if Xbox is at the bottom, if it can be profitable for the Microsoft brand, then it has a place. And that's what I think people just need to realize that is what this is all about at the end of the day. It's not it's not about just console sales. It's not just even about Game Pass subscriber numbers. It's about, and this is something that Xbox CFO Tim Stewart talked about last year. He talked about it's about high profit margins. Like that's what they're aiming for. And I think that they're just kind of beginning to realize, like they're putting it together in their minds now, that we could do that by being a third-party publisher at times when it makes sense to do so. The question is, Sony's seeking the same thing. So what is Sony's biggest problem right now? Profit margins. Sony's making a boatload of revenue. Revenue is not the problem. It's the profit margins. The profit margins are shrinking or not growing because they just can't keep up with the cost of everything. But they're still making a lot of money. So it's like, all right, live service. Okay, how's that working out so far? Well, it seems like it's not. Will it? Maybe. So I guess what I'm trying to say here, guys, is that when we just take a step back and we look at Sony and Microsoft, something that has become abundantly clear is they're both chasing the exact same thing. That should be clear to everybody. And that's what's so, I think, strange about these kind of, I guess you could, I don't even know if I could just call them conversations, but the kind of fighting and the arguing that occurs online is that people need to have a broader understanding that these corporations, both Sony and Microsoft, yes, one may be much bigger than the other. They are chasing the exact same thing at the end of the day. The only thing that is different between them is the way in which they are pursuing it and the way in which basically what they believe will work versus what they believe won't work. And I'll tell you right now, Microsoft playing the third-party publisher card, Sony, that is, at the very least, Sony's going to be paying attention to that to a certain extent, because it would be dumb of them not to. Because the whole reason Microsoft would be doing this is we want to get more sales, right? We want to make our publishing business more profitable. That is exactly what Sony wants to do. But the thing is, Sony might find themselves in a somewhat awkward position that Microsoft, I don't think, finds themselves in, because, well, they are in the same position, but it's not awkward for them because Microsoft will turn Phil Spencer will turn to an Xbox owner and say, "We value you. We care about you. We want you to feel special." And then he'll turn and, talk about how they want to be everywhere and they want, or at least the Xbox CFO will turn around and say, like, "Yeah, we want to start releasing games on PlayStation and Nintendo." And it's like, that's the difference between the way in which Microsoft and Sony is operating. And that right there makes you wonder, what is the future of the console market, knowing that there's this desire from gamers? Clearly, there's a demand. Clearly, if there wasn't a demand, it wouldn't exist. And so the companies have to meet that demand for big, expensive AAA games, high-quality games. I'll tell you, man, this is why I don't envy the next PlayStation CEO, because this is the needle that they're going to have to thread. You have a console market that, it's not that the console market's shrinking. If anything, it might be growing, but it's just not rapidly growing. It's not like Sony's on a trajectory right now where we're going to sell 200 million PS5s. If that's what the PS5 was doing right now, this entire conversation would be different. Sony's entire outlook on console gaming would be different than it is right now. But what Sony believes, and this is obviously what Microsoft believes, it just seems like the only one that, I don't know if it's a matter of belief for Nintendo, but I think Nintendo just doesn't give a shit, which is a whole nother conversation in and of itself because of how fascinating it is. But Microsoft clearly believes the console market is saturated. It hit the ceiling. It's not going to bust through. You're not going to see a console go from one generation selling 120 million to the next generation 220 million. The peak has been reached. I think Sony believes that as well. But the biggest reason I think they believe that is because I think they're kind of in a position where they might have no choice but to believe that, right? Like it's as simple as this, guys. The cost of these games is rising substantially. The market for the console is not growing alongside of it in a substantial way. That's what I'm trying to say. I know I'm like being very long-winded, but that's basically what this boils down to, is the console market seems to have reached, if not a point of stagnation, a point of minimal growth. This is why Microsoft put out the Series S. Microsoft wanted to see, is it a price thing? No, it's not a price thing. If it was, the Series S would be selling like crazy right now. It seems like it's just a market thing. And I think that when we talk about the influence that other forms of media are having on video games, this is part of it. Okay, well, why would console gaming either stagnate, shrink, or just not experience much growth? Well, it would mean that they just can't reach new people. Why wouldn't they reach new people? Because people are their expectations are just different. If they're not gaming on PC, then they're gaming on their phone. And if you're gaming on your phone, I can tell you right now, good luck, Sony, Microsoft. Good luck trying to convince somebody who's used to gaming on their phone to go buy a console. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's like you'll be lucky if for every 100 people gaming on their phone, that even one person is like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll buy a console. And then it just gets even more difficult from there. Then you're talking about people who may not even be into gaming. Okay, what about people who are interacting with Netflix and movies and TV? Can we get them into gaming? Maybe, but look at the expectation. The expectation for how people are going to see new movies today is I'm going to pull out my remote, turn on my TV, and stream my movie. If you want to get them into AAA gaming, we got to go buy a console. You got to pay $70 for a game. You know, you got to download the game. I mean, there are barriers to entry, and that's the way it's always been. And I think the reason why it's been like that for so long is because it's the technology, right? The technology is now seemingly beginning to catch up to where it naturally lends itself to removing those barriers, but there is seemingly going to be some kind of cost possibly associated with removing those barriers. Well, that's the question. Is there a cost associated with removing those barriers? I mean, let me ask you, why don't you like the idea of cloud gaming? Why don't you like the idea of Sony making a AAA mobile game? Why don't you like the idea of, somebody picking up a controller and streaming games through PlayStation Plus on their TV? I think it's easy to say, oh, well, it's because you're a gatekeeper, but I think it goes a little bit, I mean, maybe for some people, but I think it ultimately goes a little bit deeper than that, where it's like, well, because there has to be a cost associated with this, right? Like something's got to give here. The reality for Microsoft and Sony is neither of them have penetrated the wider market in the way that they want. I think Microsoft believed that they were truly onto something with Game Pass, and they might still be. It's not happening now, and it might seemingly take even longer. They believe that, hey man, we're going to be the Netflix of gaming. In other words, we're going to be everywhere, and everybody's going to be subscribed. That's not what happened. Sony, I think that they had you can't blame them. I think that they looked at the success of the PS4, their resurgence within the AAA game space in a bigger way. Like they're making more money off these games than ever before. They're selling more copies than ever before. They probably went into this generation being like, we're gonna fucking murder. Like we're not even like not that we're gonna do good, but we're gonna grow. Like we're gonna push this thing forward. We're gonna move the needle. And I'm not saying that that's not gonna happen, but it's like, well, right now, the PS5 is basically on the same path as the PS4. So there's no real indication that you're going to move the needle in any meaningful way. Okay, well, we have the Switch 2 coming out. Can the Switch 2 move the needle? Well, even if it does, it's very different from the PlayStation. It's very different from the traditional console, It's a hybrid. So if it does move the needle, what does that mean? That you have to create a hybrid console to do so? Maybe. I'm having this conversation. I'm going so in depth here with this and focused on all these different things because this is what it boils down to, man. These companies are investing more money than ever before in their game development, more money than ever before in their studios, in their talent. It's expensive to, hire like thousands of developers and maintain that. We want them to invest in new IP. We want them to make sequels to games that we love. We expect the quality bar to raise. But this is why when people freak out about $70 games, don't get me wrong, I'm right there with you. $70 is a lot of fucking money. But that's not even like, I know some people are going to think it's absurd that I'm saying this, but it's just the harsh reality. It's a fact that these games are likely worth more than $70 in some cases. Or at the very least, we're getting like $70 is cheaper than what it should be, technically speaking, due to inflation. Like we're actually paying less than what the actual price of games should be. And you've heard the executives talk about this. And I know the easy thing to do is for people to just say they're just greedy executives, or maybe they know what they're talking about. Don't get me wrong. These companies are absolutely driven by greed, of course. But it's like when multiple CEOs of video game companies, some of the biggest in the world, including Capcom, Take-Two, even Jim Ryan hinted at this. They come out and they say games should be more expensive. I mean, I understand that from a consumer-facing perspective. You're like, what the fuck are you? What? I get it. Trust me, I get it. But from their perspective, they're looking at how much they're putting into each game and how the profit margins are shrinking to a concerning degree where it's like, uh-oh, how are we going to justify this? So I'm not saying that the solution is make games more expensive. I'll pay more for them. We'll all pay more for them, because I think that it could be just, and it depends. Like, this is where it almost gets somewhat political, maybe a little bit philosophical, where it's like, well, which side are you on? Like, do you want more growth? Do we just want more growth? Like, are we hungry for more growth? We want bigger, better games. We want a bigger gaming market. We want to see more consoles sold. We want to see, we just want to see more money flowing. We want to see the percentages go up. Or is it maybe we don't want that? Maybe we don't need that. Maybe we've reached a ceiling. Maybe now things have to deflate a little bit. Things have to come down a little bit. Maybe it is okay if AAA games don't get any more AAA than they are now because they're pretty fucking AAA. It's okay. Maybe the technology doesn't have to be as cutting edge, because it's like, well, I'm trying to look at the difference between, this one. Like, it's like, again, I played Lies of P, and Lies of P is not a perfect game, graphically speaking. Like, you can tell that this is not it's a great looking game, but you can tell, like, this was definitely a team that didn't have the biggest budget, right? Like, this isn't something you would expect to, like, be shown off as, like, here's the most cutting edge looking, graphically beautiful game. I'll take, you know what? Fuck it. I'll take Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Forbidden West is a game that is admired for how it looks. It's just like the beauty of that game, the cutting edge graphics. Listen, if the solution to this problem is either the next Horizon game for PlayStation 6 has to look exactly the same, so that way there isn't fucking calamity that's about to occur behind the scenes financially, okay, I'm fine with that. This is where it's like, I do want good graphics. I do want big, exciting games. I do want all this stuff in the AAA space. But I don't know that I'm at a point where it's like, listen, if it's going to get to a point where the only way you can guarantee success, like justifiable, like, okay, this game justified itself, is we need to sell fucking 8 million copies bare minimum, I'm okay with shrinking it down a bit, because that shit's not worth it. Like, that's crazy. That's scary. Like, that's actually scary, because we, in a way, as games, as the AAA-ification continues, right? In a way, it's almost like we're slowly getting a little bit further away from what this is all supposed to be about. Games are supposed to be fun to play. Gameplay is king. You give me the most beautiful, cutting-edge, technologically advanced game in the world, it plays like shit, I don't care about it. So where'd all that money go? I'm not saying that we should go the other extreme and, like, Sony, make AA games now, don't make exciting AAA games. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying I think things are clearly out of balance right now. And I guess I don't know, I guess it comes down to how the market's going to respond. I think Sony is under the impression, and I think Microsoft is under this impression as well, that we make these games bigger, more exciting, higher quality. Surely it's going to have more wide-reaching appeal. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But it's a balancing act. That's why Sony's pursuing mobile. That's why they're pursuing all live service games, all these different avenues. No guaranteed success, but very fascinating conversation nonetheless. I feel like I kind of went in a very different direction here, but It was inevitable. New Soul 9. Sorry, man. I missed your $10 super chat here. I have a couple more super chats I missed. You're saying Game Pass is already doing that, MBG, and makes people take the choice to avoid console. So Microsoft selling their games on PlayStation is no different compared to Game Pass. Yeah, well, what's fascinating to me about this notion is that, like, do we assume that if Microsoft puts some of their games onto PlayStation, do we assume that it means Game Pass is no longer as valuable to them, or they don't care about it as much, or do we assume the opposite, that no, it's still their main priority, but these games are not bringing people in the Game Pass? I'm assuming the latter there. I'm assuming that it's that these games, it's similar to the console. Again, Game Pass basically is Microsoft's console. I know that sounds weird, and that doesn't really make much sense. But I guess what I mean is the mentality that Microsoft had for the Xbox console. They took that mentality and they inserted it into Game Pass and said, this is what's going to do it. So Game Pass acts as the vehicle, essentially. So the way I look at it, as the PlayStation 5 console is not a vehicle, it is a place you go to. You take a vehicle to get to PlayStation, to the PlayStation ecosystem. Like, you go to them. To whereas I think Game Pass is more of a vehicle where, like, no, we will take it to you. We will deliver it to you. We will drive it to you. But at the end of the day, it's like they both share the exact same common denominator, which is, okay, what is the point of either of them existing? Well, they both need good games. And it's just so weird. I don't know, man. I'm very interested to see what happens in the AAA game space. I'm very interested to see what happens in the AAA game space because it's clear that there are problems right now. I don't know that the problems are severe or unsolvable. It's just that there are problems, and they do need solutions, and they do need to be taken care of now, because if they're not taken care of now, there is a very real possibility that it's going to get a lot worse. And I think that maybe this could be one of the reasons why Jim Ryan retired, because I think Jim saw this clear as day, man. I think he's like, dude, the AAA game space is getting crazy. And if maybe once it became clear to Jim that the live service space is going to be a lot harder to break into than he thought, maybe he just said, you know what, maybe this is a good time for me to bow out and retire, and good luck to the next person in charge. And yeah, hopefully the next person in charge at PlayStation really does know how to tackle these problems. He left before the disaster. I don't know if it depends. Like, does anybody find it kind of interesting, the timing of all this, right? Like, Jim Ryan's retiring at the same time that we know pretty much nothing about except for Insomniac. Insomniac, we know their future. Putting Insomniac aside, we know, like, pretty much nothing about the future of PlayStation right now. Even at CES, dude, listen, I saw a lot of PlayStation fans kind of hyping up CES tomorrow, or yesterday, I mean, because it is true that fans who pay close attention are getting a little bit desperate to hear from Sony. Like, Sony, what do you, like, it's like, we know you got games coming for the next couple months. Of course, we're going to be busy playing a lot of games, but it's like, Sony, like, what's the plan here, man? Can you share that with us? And I think some fans looked at CES as a good opportunity for Sony to give us a little hint, a little glimpse. But no, Dude, Jim Ryan wasn't even there. They're like, no, we're not saying shit. We're not saying shit about shit. So, figuratively literal. You're saying here, I think they are saying the platform will lose some of its identity, despite the brand remaining intact. The platform does become less appealing. Yeah, that makes more sense. So it's not the brand losing its identity; it's the platform itself, the ecosystem. And I think that's a very good way of putting it, a very simple way of just communicating. Where it's like, if Microsoft does this every time they do it, and people have said this about PlayStation as well, where it's like, once PlayStation started putting their games on PC, are they losing their identity? It's like, well, they're not losing their identity, but it does diminish the need, the literal need. Because that's, I think, something very important to understand when we talk about this stuff, is that the console market is based around the company creating a need for their console and for their product. And every decision that's made in the name of taking something from that console and putting it somewhere else, it's not about being upset that other people get to play it. It's about understanding, and it's up to you to decide how much it matters to you and how much you care, but it's about understanding that, well, that is lowering the actual need for this thing. And so it just depends. It's an individual thing, right? Where, like, I've seen some interesting takes from Xbox fans on the internet, very different ones. I've seen some video clips and stuff, and it's like, I mean, these are just rumors right now. And it's such an interesting dichotomy, because yesterday it was so doom and gloom. And then today Microsoft announces an Xbox Direct and people are excited. And I think that I think that is a perfect microcosm example of just how weird things are right now. And I suspect that very similar things may happen with PlayStation in the future as well. Not to the same level, but just things where it's like, one day Sony's announcing this and making what seems like a bad or strange decision, and the next day they're doing something that people like. And it's like, at the end of the day, people just have to think about how it really affects them, you know? I've been talking a lot about profit margins, the AAA game space, what these companies need to do. But at the end of the day, man, like, I just want to play games and enjoy them. And I just don't want to see anything bad happen. That's all. Like, I don't want to see anything bad happen to Sony and PlayStation, Microsoft and Xbox, Nintendo, PC gaming. Like, I do want to see an ideal gaming space where there's just, I know not everything can be great. I know that there are going to be problems and bad things will happen, but I don't want to see it get, like, it just seems to me that, like, it's kind of, again, it's shifting more towards, like, something pretty bad might be looming around the corner, and we kind of get, like, hints of this. Well, to be honest, we got more than a hint. Truthfully, we got the data right in front of us from Sony. And you can't help but get nervous about, like, well, what does this mean for the future of the games? Actually, you're saying PlayStation absolutely lost something putting games on PC? Damn. I didn't read I just read the second part of what Actually said. Actually's taking it to another level, bro. I wouldn't compare those two things, frankly. I wouldn't say they're the same thing. But the point has been made. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny to me because, let's take Helldivers 2, for example. Helldivers 2 is a Sony-owned intellectual property. They just started marketing this game today, and they're marketing it PC forward. Think about that. Today, they talked about the specs, and they put out a PC trailer for it. I don't know if, like, they're prioritizing PC marketing because maybe they think more people on PC will buy it, but they're experimenting. That's the point. Yeah, they're going to do crossplay. This is an experiment for Sony. I don't know if people realize that. This is the first day one PC, as far as I'm aware. during the PS5 generation. This is the first day one PC game that's a PS5 console exclusive as well. Multiplayer. And it's interesting because it's like I'm watching that trailer, and they're saying captured on PC, and they release the specs, and it's just like I don't feel bad at all. Like I actually just kind of thought like maybe I don't know if I'm going to, because I'm planning on buying a physical copy for PS5, but I almost thought like maybe I give it a try on PC, just see what it's like, I told you guys this year I'm going to try to get into PC gaming for the first time and see how I like it. That should be interesting. I don't know if maybe I want to. I don't think I'll start with Helldivers, but it was just a thought, But you talk about like losing the identity. I get it, I do. It's just you get so accustomed to something being a certain way, and then it just changes. I mean, just like out of the blue, it's just like, oh, and it's just not like that anymore. It can be jarring, it can be unexpected, but I can honestly just say right now that it doesn't impact me at all, knowing that any PlayStation game that gets announced, it's going to come out on PS5 or in the future PlayStation 6 first, and then it'll release on PC. That doesn't affect me. Now, if Sony were to make a big change where they're like, we're going day one PC with our single player games too, I'm at a point where I still am pretty sure like it wouldn't affect me at all. Like it would just be like, wow, that's totally unexpected. Maybe not totally, but how things have changed. But that's where it's like, I would have to separate my personal reasoning for why I buy a video game console from why other people buy theirs. There are a lot of people that would say, and they say this with Xbox, they have said it with PlayStation once, PlayStation with the PC, what's the point? Fuck if I know. I can't answer that for you. I know what the point is for me. But if you don't see a point in the buying a console, then don't buy one. You get what I'm saying? It's like, it's just the realization that, dude, how this affects other people doesn't matter to me. The only concern I've ever had, and this is it, this is the only concern, is that, and it's a fair concern, I don't ever want to see the console get deprioritized to a point where it does fade into obscurity and irrelevance. And I'm not trying to be an asshole towards Xbox buyers right now. But man, it really kind of is starting to feel like that's slowly but surely what's starting to happen with the Xbox console, where I don't know, maybe this is just a bad generation again for Microsoft. Maybe they're going to kick the doors down with the next Xbox console and it's going to be awesome. That'd be cool. Like, I want to see that. Dude, now more than ever, knowing that Microsoft might be bringing some of their games to PlayStation and Xbox, and that creates a questionable future. To be clear, I don't want to see Microsoft exit the console space. That would be bad. Like, dude, I think Sony would still do just fine. Nintendo and Sony would do just fine. But one less competing console is not a good thing for the console market. That is not a good thing. But at the same time, it's like, this, to me, this is where the concern lies, where, all right. I gotta think about how I'm going to approach this next part. Okay. So I was scrolling on X, formerly known as Twitter, or still known as Twitter, depending on who you ask. And I came across a video clip. I'm not going to get into the specifics of this video clip, but what struck me about this video clip is it was an Xbox fan who is, I guess you could say, passionate, and something they kept doing in this clip was condescending console owners by making it sound like they're like you're childish or something. Like, if you care about the plastic box that is your video game console. If you care about it, right? Or if you like follow sales at all. And what was so strange to me, what struck me about this is that I know for a fact that the person, at least in this specific instance, the person who's saying this did absolutely care at one point about that exact thing that they are now condescending and belittling and kind of making it seem like it's beneath them. In fact, they cared about it so much that they based their, at least a part of their identity on it. And this to me is part of the problem, where it's like, it doesn't have to be either of those things. And that to me highlights the problem when it comes to the console wars, so to speak, right? Where we need to be mature about this and understand that it's okay to care about your video game console in the sense that you like it. You enjoy it. It means something to you in the sense that it provides something for you. It gives you something, right? It's okay to do that. It's also okay to not care about it at all. It's also totally okay to whereas if you're just indifferent to it, where it's just a means to an end to you, where it's like, it's like when I see people who say, well, I only buy PS5 for the exclusives. That implies that if Sony were to release their games onto PC like day one, that you would never buy a console. And it's like, that's totally fine as well. Like, both of these things are fine. The only thing that to me is problematic about any of this in the context of, well, why should we care about consoles versus why we shouldn't, is, and this is something I nor you as an individual control, it's about the market. We could discover, if Sony were to put their games day one onto PC in the future, like every game, like Wolverine and Ghost of Tsushima 2 and all this stuff, and going forward, that's their new model, we could discover, and it's an unknown, that the console market is way smaller than we believed. Like, way, way smaller. Where it's not about 90, 100, 110 million people. It's about 30, 40, 50, maybe 60 million people. And the reason for this is because it turns out that there was a very, 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 very large chunk of people buying these consoles just because they felt like they had to. Because there was a need. And if that were to happen, like if the console market were to rapidly shrink in that way, so suddenly, I mean, it would be very concerning for the future of the console space, where it's like, what place does console gaming really have at this point? And that's a question that we just don't have an answer to, that I think every console manufacturer, except for maybe Xbox, is deathly afraid to find out. You know, like Xbox. See, what concerns me is that this generation for the Xbox Series X and S is one that happened after they decided to make their big shift in the Xbox One generation, where it's like, okay, Game Pass, day one PC. And, you know, a lot of people at that time said, and I think it was a true statement, they were like, well, people who want the console are going to buy it. And I think that still remains true. I think it still remains true that, like, well, of course. But that's just it, man. Is like, this generation may end up being worse for the Xbox Series X and S than it was for even the Xbox One. And that's crazy to think. But the question then becomes this. Is that because people don't like buying consoles and they actually just don't care about them? Or is it because they have to make a choice between, if you're going to buy a console, you're either going to buy an Xbox, a PlayStation, or a Nintendo Switch, and because neither Sony nor Nintendo are doing what Microsoft is, Microsoft's making that decision for them. Yeah, go buy the PlayStation, go buy the Switch, because we're gonna come to you. And that's the whole thing is like, when I think about it in this way, I begin to think that it might be Nintendo, believe it or not, that stops Sony from fully going and embracing the same direction that Microsoft is. Because what Sony might have to, they might have to, I don't know. They might have to worry that, okay, well, we don't have to worry about Microsoft in the console space. So if we want to branch out, experiment a little bit, start putting more games more rapidly on the PC, right? Well, we don't have to worry about Xbox anymore because they're doing it too. And yeah, so we're the more popular console brand, so it should be fine. But then you have to consider, but is Nintendo doing that? And then the answer is no. So what Sony might then be doing is communicating the message that, okay, well, we don't really value the console market as much anymore. We just want you to buy our games. You can get them on PC. I guess the question at that point then becomes, how many console gamers will trade in their console for a gaming PC? I don't know, man. I do wonder. Like, I do wonder if the future of the console market really is just consoles becoming nearly indistinguishable from PCs from top to bottom, right? Where it's like, right now, a lot of people say, well, it's getting closer to that. But think about the PlayStation 6, right? Think about the next Xbox. Like, knowing that these companies are becoming more and more willing and open to put their games in other places. I don't know. I don't know, man. Questions that I'm looking forward to getting answers to. It's not even that it's not even that it matters that much at the end of the day, right? Getting back to, see, I keep doing this thing where I keep talking about me on an individual level, what I want, my personal preference, but then I get very broad and I'm talking very wide reaching. So I keep mixing those things together. So I do apologize if it seems like I'm just all over the place. That's why. I'll just speak for myself right now. And I still have a couple more super chats. I do apologize keeping you guys waiting, but I just have clearly a lot to say here. Nothing new there. For me personally, I enjoy the console. It is somewhat nostalgic, right? Where it's like I grew up playing on the PlayStation console. I grew up playing Xbox, even Nintendo, right? Like, this is just, I didn't grow up PC gaming. I remember when I was really young, I did have access to a PC and I did attempt to play some games on it, and I just didn't like it. I just didn't. I like the console better. It just appealed to me. Maybe I'm just a simpleton. I don't know, but it just appealed to me so much more. And that has stuck with me over the years, where it's like, it has always felt like each console has had its own unique identity, where each console feels unique in its own way. It feels different. It feels very different from PC, but it also feels very different from the other console. And I just don't know that I'm eager to see, like, it could be good, but it could also come with some drawbacks we're not fully aware of yet. I just don't know that I'm ready to see this kind of just total blurring of lines, where it's like, now you don't really know. Like, that's what's kind of funny is, the first thing I thought of about the idea of Sea of Thieves. Now, I wouldn't play Sea of Thieves if it came to PlayStation. I played Sea of Thieves like way back when it first launched, and I'm like, I'm good here. I just can't get into this. But I see the appeal to an extent. But if that game were to come to PS5, the first thought I had in my mind is, it's going to get trophy support. And isn't that just like kind of so funny that it's like, that's one of, I guess, the uniquely defining traits of PlayStation, versus where like Xbox has achievements. As far as I'm aware, Nintendo still doesn't have anything like that. I think people have been wanting that. I think it's kind of cool that they don't, though. But I don't know, man. You just got to wonder, as time moves forward, as technology advances, as AAA games begin to reach some kind of dangerous point of just how much they cost to develop, you just have to wonder, like, where exactly does the traditional console model, where does it fit in all of this? Because right now, for Sony, forward facing, they're telling us this is the priority. Right now, for Microsoft, forward facing, they're saying it's not our priority. Nintendo, forward facing, is saying, what, we don't even know what's going on. We're just making our Switch 2 and our games. And so you gotta wonder. You do gotta wonder, like, where this is all headed for the console space. But one thing I cannot get behind, truthfully, is the bashing of the console space and making it seem like it's um like that kind of arrogant attitude where it's like it's beneath other things. And it's like, no, I think the console gaming space has proven that it's not that at all. Like, I have that mentality towards like mobile gaming to an extent, but I have my reasons for that. But I try not to be that way in general, because like somebody could say to me right now, well, that's what I do. I play mobile games and I love it. And it's like, who am I to judge you? Who am I to say that what you're doing is less than what I'm doing? I just, as I get older, I begin to hate that toxic mentality. And so I just, overall, in conclusion, I hope all these things can work well together. I would like to see a future where one does not have to succeed at the expense of the other, but that doesn't mean I don't want competition. I just think competition has to be relegated at this point to the games. I do. If we are looking down the barrel of a future where the competition between Sony and Microsoft is going to come in the form of timed exclusive games for each platform holder, then so be it. But we can't see the complete removal of competition. That just wouldn't be good. Anyway, let me read some of these super chats. Thank you guys so much for waiting patiently. I do apologize keeping you waiting this long. We have Figuratively Literal saying, for example, third-party publishers have identities but are the least appealing platforms when it comes to subscriptions. It's not necessarily bad, just very different. Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that, because that's not even something I thought about, how like these third-party publishers do have their own subscription services, but they are just not talked about the same way. They're not viewed the same way, and I don't think they're interacted with the same way. And it just, if anything, you're right, it just kind of does highlight that there is some type of identity surrounding an actual platform that if they move too far away from that itself, it's not that they will not be known for it at all, but it's like you might be at the bottom of the totem pole at that point, It does run the risk of becoming irrelevant, at least in terms of subscriptions, let alone consoles, right? So we also have Wolroar Hirabalus, member for 5 months, saying this is a play for Microsoft to buy more studios to show regulatory they play nice. Smart move for Xbox. I think games as a service, games like SOT or Sea of Thieves will go to PlayStation. Well, see, that's what makes Hi-Fi Rush kind of fascinating, right? Sea of Thieves is a game that's like inconsequential, where it's like, of course, it's a live service. I've maintained the stance that a game, it doesn't matter who's making it. If a game is a live service, it needs to be everywhere where it makes sense. Within their means. In the case of Microsoft and Sony, it's like, guys, you both have consoles that, they're very similar in the sense that they're both powerful almost equally, right? Like they're not that far away from each other. Live service games should just be everywhere. I just because to me it's like the more I think about it, the more I think about like what drives a live service game. It's like, dude, a platform does not drive a live service game. It just doesn't. But then again, if you have a live service game that can become immensely successful just on your platform, I could kind of see why it could be appealing to say, well, this may not like be our main driver of the platform, but it doesn't mean it can't help. Certainly it could, right? I could see that. But I guess I'm just saying, like, when your intention is to build the biggest player base possible and obtain the most revenue through your ongoing game, like why would you limit that? All right, let me see here. We got IP Gaming. He says, you asked earlier, what if this influences Sony? My question to you, MBG, is what if this influences someone else like Apple or Nvidia? Good question. Good question. Yeah, well, see that's why I'm saying, man, this big I want to highlight once again what I put in my title, big industry shift. That is what this is to a certain extent, man, where it's just it's the beginning of it. We're seeing the very early stages of it, and we do need to keep in mind that Microsoft, and I think Sony has like alluded to this as well, but not as directly as Microsoft has in the past, where it's like other big names that are not necessarily involved in gaming, at least not in the biggest way, are going to start getting more involved. I don't know that that comes in the form of like, oh, Apple is going to make their own console or something like that. Nothing like that, but just knowing that both of these companies are trying to achieve the same thing, which is, hey, we want to appeal to like a mass market of billions of people. Yeah, that's going to catch the attention of big companies and corporations that are also doing that same thing, maybe already. So it's a good question, man. Again, it's the tough thing about conversations like this, is that they really do lead to just way more questions than answers. It's hard to say anything definitively when it feels like, again, every couple of months we're having these different conversations because there's just things are changing. They're changing so rapidly, it's almost like it's hard to keep up. So the answer eludes us right now, IP gaming, but it's definitely anything's possible at this point. That I believe. Anything is possible, truthfully. Actually says I miss when consoles were all very unique. They had their own bespoke specs that ended in the PS3 era. Now they're just essentially PCs. Yeah. I get what you're saying. I do miss that too. That's why I really wonder what the next gen consoles are going to be like, right? Where it's like, what is the PlayStation 6 going to do to differentiate itself not only from the PC market, but from the PS5 itself? Antonio Lopes says Sony is allowing Marathon to be multiplat. Bungie is a special case, of course, but Sony would have never agreed to do those terms if it was agreed to do those terms if it was that bad. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Bungie, I mean, Marathon being multiplat, like Marathon being a Sony owned IP at this point that's going to release on Xbox day one. Well, we talked earlier about how Sony is very willing to experiment, right? Sony's willing to experiment and test the waters. I think that's exactly what they're going to do with something like Marathon. Um, I would assume that the PlayStation Studios logo is going to pop up on this game. And we've already kind of seen that experiment run at least once with MLB The Show. So I think PlayStation fans need to get ahead of this. I do. Like I if there's one thing that look, I can say this with confidence. You know why I can say this with confidence? Because I've been watching it and partaking in it for years. And what I can say with confidence is that people like myself, and I know I'm kind of I might be throwing myself under the bus here to an extent, but I'm not trying to like throw everybody under the bus. I just think it's just been proven at this point. Years and years and years of speculation, of predictions, of trying to I wouldn't even say trying, but years of at certain times becoming arrogant and believing like, no, this won't happen. Or yes, this will happen. Or just feeling so sure of something. There's one thing I feel very confident in is that there's nothing anybody should feel sure of at this point. Whether you're a PlayStation player who prefers the PlayStation brand or an Xbox player who prefers the Xbox brand. In fact, I would argue that the only company that you can feel sure of is Nintendo. That's it. And the only reason for that is because Nintendo is just like straight up making it clear as day, like this is how we operate and that's not going to change. And that's that. So when it comes to like, I guess what I'm trying to say is when I say like, I think PlayStation fans have to get ahead of this, what I'm trying to say is PlayStation fans, in my opinion, need to look at what's going on with Xbox, see like, again, like seeing, I am just shocked to a degree that we are seeing certain reactions across the internet still from, I guess, people who are Xbox fans or whatever, where it's like, guys, how could you even feel surprised by this? Even a little bit, even remotely. That is shocking to me because it's like, have you not been paying attention at all to like Microsoft for even the past like 3 to 4 years? And it's sad to see that because it's like what I feel like I'm looking at is I see some PlayStation fans in the exact same position sometime from now. I don't know if it's a year from now. I don't know if it's 3 years from now. I don't know if it's, but I'll tell you right now, I'm seeing like certain. I'm really kind of referring to toxic fanboys at this point. I mean, like people who are really being toxic on the internet right now. I'm seeing certain people kind of like use this as like we're gonna dunk on Xbox fans and like make fun of that. If not make fun of them, but like kind of poke them. It's like, guys, you how have you not learned by now? Like, how have you not learned that, dude? What the exact thing you are dunking on them for probably going to come around. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but don't be surprised when the exact same thing happens on the PlayStation side of things. And I'm honestly surprised that there are even PlayStation fans out there right now that still have, I don't want to say the audacity because I think that's a strong word, but just the confidence to speak as if they know what Sony's going to do. Like, dude, you have no fucking idea. You can hope all you want that they do this, or that. Doesn't mean they're going to. You have no idea. Dude, Sony might do something even crazier than Microsoft in the next couple years. People just need, like, people who have been entrenched in this way of thinking for a long time now, thinking that, and I've been guilty of this at times as well, where it's like, oh, I have a good idea of what's going to happen. Like, but do you really? I mean, do you? And maybe some people actually do, but I would argue that even for the things that people get right, there's just as many things that come around that they just didn't even think about, that didn't even occur to them as a possibility. Not necessarily something they get worked up about, but just something that caught them off guard. And this is why these conversations get so tired. Not this one in particular, but the ones that you see people having the back and forth spats where it's like, it's the same thing. It's literally the same thing, just with a different topic today, just a different brand or a different particular device or game. It's the same thing. So I'm not sitting here saying like we need to just be, I'm not sitting here saying Sony is going to start putting their games on PC day one. All of their games. I'm not sitting here saying that that Sony's going to follow Microsoft and start putting some of their exclusives onto Xbox and possibly Switch. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is don't think they won't. That's what I'm trying to say. That's your if you assume that, you are falling into the trap. You're falling into the trap of you think you work at Sony, you think you're a high-end executive at Sony that knows the business goings on. Dude, you don't know. You're basing your assumption off of history. You're basing your assumption off of the the PS3 generation, the PS4 generation. And none of the people who ran those gens are there now. None. None of those people. It's new people with new initiatives, new ideas, and that's just the reality. You're saying, we get it, dude. You're being very dramatic. I do apologize. I'm not trying to come off as dramatic. It's because it's really not. You're saying Donkey's recent video about streaming services is how the gaming industry could go. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I don't follow Donkey, but that sounds like an interesting video. So I think it's just at some point people just have to come to the realization that these are corporate entities that are in it to survive and thrive. And the way that they do that is by finding the most profitable path forward without completely alienating their own audiences or ruining their own product or brand. It's a very difficult thing to do. So I just felt that this would be a good time to express this. It's not about being dramatic. It's just about accepting that things have changed. Things continue to change. Things will change. Whether you're a PlayStation fan, an Xbox fan, or even a Nintendo fan, eventually, I'm sure even eventually, who knows when, but I'm sure even eventually things will change for Nintendo as well. All right, let me see. Boss, bro. I hope you're just like, huh? What? Amazing. Boss, your timing is impeccable. What better way to put things in perspective than to see my cat? It seemed like he was licking his ass there for a minute. Oh, all right. All right, let's see here. We have Supremacy 101. He says, and that underwhelmed feeling you got with Spider-Man 2 is the reason why Sony is desperate for their own Fortnite, COD, GTA Online, double dip PC ports. Yeah, yeah. Yes and no. Yes, to the extent that I think Sony is realizing that, man, it's hard to keep up with this. It's it's hard to make sure that every single player game hits. Because the reality of the market is that not everything is going to hit. But I say no as well because Spider-Man 2 did hit. I know there's a lot of drama online about Spider-Man 2. That's kind of part of the reason I don't want to talk about it because it's just like I'm willing to just leave it as it was a good game that I had fun playing, not a very memorable one, not the most exciting one. It was fine. It was a Spider-Man game. I've moved on. That's where I prefer to leave it. But I know that there's a lot of conversations, a lot of back and forth with this game, a lot of defending, a lot of agitating, and people have their reasons, and that's fine. But Spider-Man 2 is going to be a success. Like, it is a success. Like, Spider-Man 2 is going to be one of the better selling games, but it is kind of crazy to think that what was like the minimum sales? I think this came out the minimum amount of sales that Spider-Man 2 would need to just break even was like 6 or 7 million or something. That's crazy. Like, I mean, putting everything else aside, that's crazy. There's something wrong with that. In the AAA space, even like 7 years ago or 6 years ago, a game selling like 2 to 3 million copies would be considered like a pretty good success, like good shit. I mean, that is really ballooning so much that it's like, yeah, Sony, if you can't figure out a way to lower that threshold, then you are going to need a different way. You're going to need some live service. You're going to need it. There's like a $300 million budget. It's scary. Like, if you're Sony, you're fucking terrified, dude. I can only imagine how it must feel to be like, dude, you are walking on thin ice where it's like this, like it cannot fail. I've had conversations in the past about how, diamonds are made under pressure, right? How it's like having that pressure can be a good thing, but it's like there is a limit where it's like, all right, now it's going in a direction where it's like this is becoming untenable and not good for anybody. We don't want to see it do that. Vic Sicius, member for 7 months. Thank you, buddy. You're saying the reason sub works for movies and music is that they have other ways of income. Movies have theaters, physical releases. Music has concerts and merch. Yeah, that's true. But you could argue that we see that now in gaming, though, right? Where it's like instead of concerts and merch and theaters and physical releases, there's microtransactions, DLC, skins, currency, stuff like that. Things you can buy, things like ways in which you can spend more money. And if anything, that kind of lends itself to a sub-service. Like, dude, again, it's just crazy to think that GTA Online has its own subscription service in its game, GTA Online Plus. That's where we're headed. Yeah, I saw that Caitlin Denver is that her name? Denver is going to play Abby in The Last of Us Season 2. I'll be really interested to see how they handle The Last of Us Season 2. Like, are they gonna do it the same way? Like, is it gonna happen like that, or what are they gonna do, dude? Oh man. I saw something that made me just kind of shake my head, where I was scrolling on X, or Twitter. I feel like I got to call it both. And there was I forget the name of the award show for TV, but that just occurred. But yeah, MRPD, dude, Neil Druckmann got no one. It was so awkward because he was like standing there, I guess, on the red carpet and posing for pictures, and like no one was taking pictures. Like it just looks, it looked sad. It was the Golden Globes. I don't know that I feel necessarily sorry for him, but it was sad to see, man, where it was just like, damn, that's rough. But when I was like kind of looking to see what this tweet highlighting that kind of trended a little bit. And I went to go read what people were saying. And dude, people were like, I didn't quite realize how many people, how much people don't like Neil Druckmann. Like, I've always known that there's animosity towards Neil Druckmann, but I mean, there's more than it's to a point where if I was Sony, dude, I would be like, yo, we got to be real careful with this Neil guy now. Because he is gaining seemingly a cult following of. Did it get community noted? Okay, I saw it before. What did the community note say? Because it was a little awkward. I was like, you're telling me no one's taking pictures? Pictures were taken. There wasn't much noise. There were no flashes. I think because that's where I was like, this can't be. Because I was looking at the video clip and he looked like he was posing, and I'm like, there has to be some pictures being taken, right? Like there has to be some. Like, why is he just standing there posing if nobody's taking pictures? But there were no flashes or anything. But well, either way, it just highlighted to me that, man, they're like, I was just kind of surprised to see how quickly, like, there were many replies of people, and I get it. Like, I think there are hate bandwagons, absolutely. Like, I think people hate just for the sake of hating, or it's like too much. But I try not to go too far in one direction or the other. I guess what I can say is like I can totally understand why Neil Druckmann is a divisive individual, because I lean more on the side of I'm not a big fan of Neil. I can't ignore the fact that the games that came prior to The Last of Us Part 2 weren't just from him. You know, there was Amy Hennig, of course, but what was the name of his name is eluding me right now. He was like the it's gonna drive me nuts because it's at the tip of my tongue. He worked on The Last of Us 1. Bruce Straley, thank you. Yeah, I was right there. Bruce Straley was huge. Huge. Part of Naughty Dog. Huge part of the reason why The Last of Us 1 and Uncharted 4 were success. And I just Novinser, no, I'm sorry, man. I'm gonna get to your super chat in a minute. I'm just trying to say that it's just fascinating to me that when Neil is kind of like the only one left and he's clearly in charge, it's the first time that I'm like, I don't know about this. You know what I mean? And you look at what happened with the Last of Us multiplayer. So I do believe that I think, like, from Neil Druckmann's perspective, he probably feels like I'm golden. Why wouldn't he feel that way? You made one of the most awarded games ever. He partook in the TV series, which, heavily nominated. People like it. Last of Us Part 2 sold well enough. Sold pretty good. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I think there's just this kind of disconnect where the only way Neil Druckmann, because I know a lot of people say like they want to see Neil Druckmann go, and I get that, but I'll tell you right now, there's only one way Neil's going to go, and that is a game's going to have to flop. We're going to see how far that Neil Druckmann hate actually goes when their next game, it says clear as day, directed by Neil Druckmann, and it does incredibly well. At that point, it's like, well, now if it flops, Sony might be saying, okay, maybe we need some new blood here. But we'll see. Saying you don't judge people you don't know personally. Yeah, I try not to do that either. Like, I just try to look at it as if it's somebody that I seemingly don't care for, it's whatever. Just move on with my life. You want them to bring fun back. Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, it's like funny because people say they want like Jak and Daxter, and it's like, that's not happening. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but like something like, if you're talking like that type of fun, not going to happen. Now, maybe something more akin to Uncharted, something a little bit more like adventurous, less dire. They could do that, yeah. I hope they do. Like, I hope that I think they are working on a new IP. I hope that Naughty Dog's new IP does have a different tone, because I am getting a little bit burnt out on like, The Last of Us, like, not The Last of Us universe, but just that tone where it's like everything sucks. Everything. It's like, it's just horrible. It's like, okay, all right. I'm ready, like, for something just a little bit different, Samson, you're saying, I loves me too. All right. Samson, thank you so much for the super chat. Ice Razo with the $5 super chat saying, MBG, Apple and Google make billions from gaming. Microsoft wants that market. They will never go third party because they would lose that commission. Yeah, that's true as well. I feel like this is obviously a very long conversation about a singular topic. And I feel like I didn't actually, I think I went in so many different directions. I didn't like kind of conclude the topic. So I have a couple more super chats that I'm going to read here, and then I'm going to conclude it because we do have other topics we have yet to cover. But Ice, you are right, I think, to a certain extent. And that's something we do have to keep in mind. But we also have Novinzer with a $5 chat, and he says Nintendo raised the price of their glorified mobile games to $70. Now that's greed. MK1 was broken on the Switch, and it was $70. Well, Nintendo's not perfect either. Nintendo is not immune to any of the issues that face the gaming industry, but I do think that Nintendo has I don't know if I guess it's a benefit. I don't know what to call it. But they have, what I've noticed with Nintendo is they can seemingly, navigate certain areas in the gaming industry with, I don't want to say with grace, because I don't know that grace is the right word, but they can just kind of do it, and people are like, okay. And I don't even think it's that there aren't people pointing out that there might be a problem or something, or that some people are frustrated with it. It's like, it's not, I don't know. It's not a focal point really ever, as far as I'm aware. Um, it is interesting to think about something like the, uh, MK1, right? Like, I guess it's because it doesn't necessarily fall on Nintendo themselves. That would be NetherRealm, but it's weird, man. Here's what I want to know with Nintendo. The Switch 2, will it be backwards compatibility? Or compatible, sorry. Will it be backwards compatibility? Will it be backwards compatible? Because there are still, I think, some people that think that it's not going to be. I think that's insane. But I also think, I do believe this. I believe Nintendo could announce the Switch 2 is not backwards compatible, and it would be fine. Like, I think it wouldn't be fine in the sense, like, people would erupt, but it wouldn't change the bottom line where the console would be an objective success. But yeah, that's true. The rumors are saying it will be. It's a smart move. I like, even for Nintendo, I think this Switch 2 would still be fine if it wasn't. Truthfully, like, I think it would do fine, but to me, that is like the most unnecessarily unnecessary massive risk that just doesn't have to be a thing if it doesn't have to, All right, we have Alex Mercer, the prototype member for 6 months. Appreciate that, buddy. You're saying happy late New Year into 2024 MBG. I just got a Steam Deck OLED in the mail yesterday. Wanted to try it out. So would that make me a PC gamer now? LOL. I mean, I guess to an extent, right? Like if I bought a Steam Deck and I was playing some games on it, I would say, well, yeah, I guess I'm gaming on PC. It's not the most traditional, but yeah, I would still consider it. It's a portable PC. So a happy New Year to you as well, Alex Mercer. We have Josh Z with a $10 super chat. Thank you for that, man. You're saying what people forget about Nintendo is that with the exception of the very recent present, they are a gaming company and nothing else. PlayStation and Xbox are one part of Sony and Microsoft's business. That's very true, Josh. And I think that this is what kind of makes Nintendo special to a certain degree. Even though I don't really engage with Nintendo, there is something special about knowing they're just a gaming company, right? That, like, they are still producing consoles, still selling a lot of consoles. They obviously have their own IP. That's some of the most, I'd say, the most popular in the world to an extent, right? And it's just so interesting to me to think that you get bigger, wider companies like Sony and Microsoft that are not just gaming, and they, like, I don't want to say that they're chasing what Nintendo has, but to an extent they are, at least to some extent, right? It's like, of course, Sony and Microsoft would want to have intellectual property as wide reaching and successful as Zelda and Mario. Of course, but they don't. And Nintendo does. It's just like, well, I don't know. There's just something I think kind of special about Nintendo. But yeah, that's true. Nintendo kind of does expand a little bit. They have like theme parks now, or they're making a theme park or whatever, toys and stuff. I think Nintendo always will have that kind of appeal to a younger audience as well, which is good. Like I think that hugely benefits them as a company where Microsoft and Sony don't have that in the same way. They just don't. I mean, they both have certain things that can appeal to a younger audience, Sony and Microsoft that is, but Nintendo, I think they just have that kind of like locked in where you can bet that a lot of kids are going to buy the Nintendo Switch too, right? A lot of adults will too though. It's Nintendo is kind of in this space that I think is somewhat unique to them where they're appealing to I think just as many adults as they are kids. And I don't think Sony and Microsoft are doing the same thing there. Maybe Sony and Microsoft are to a certain extent with like having games like Fortnite available and stuff, but not with their own. Well, then again, Microsoft does have Minecraft. And yeah, now they have Call of Duty too. Good point. Good point. You know what's crazy about Call of Duty is like Call of Duty is like a more mature game, but man, kids play it. Like a lot of kids play Call of Duty. You enter a Call of Duty lobby, it's like that's what are they called, the squeakers or whatever. Where it's like there's like a bunch of kids playing this game, which is so weird to me because it's just you wouldn't expect that. But Josh, yeah, interesting to think about, and I appreciate it. Well, here's what I want to do now. First off, I want to ask you guys to please hit that like button. We are sitting at 260 likes. Can we do it? Can we get to 300 likes? I think we can. I think we can. So hit that like button. I want to offer my conclusion, my closing thoughts, not a conclusion. I shouldn't say conclusion because that makes it seem like I have some kind of answer, but my closing thoughts on this. All right. When it comes to the topic of Microsoft embracing the PS5 and a big industry shift, some Microsoft first party titles coming to PlayStation. I don't foresee that much changing ultimately if this turns out to be true. I don't see a big paradigm shift where suddenly Microsoft is now viewed as a third party publisher and people are disregarding Game Pass, people are disregarding the Xbox console. I don't see a future where Xbox players get frustrated or upset that some of these back catalog games end up releasing on Switch and PlayStation. I actually think this is going to be mostly inconsequential, as strange as that may sound. And I know that it seems like everything we've discussed wasn't really leading up to that, but in the short term, I should emphasize, in the short to midterm, I think that Microsoft's plan is pretty clear right now, and that is it's about having a balancing act here. Microsoft is going to operate as a full-blown third-party publisher where it makes sense for them to do so, where they can reap the most amount of benefits from a profitability standpoint by doing so. But they're also going to continue to operate as a first-party platform holder when it makes sense. And I think that, I'll be honest, I think these leaks were intentional. I do not think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that this week started with, Sunday and Monday, it's the rumors start to circulate and it ramped up very quickly where it started with one person and then it's like 10 other outlets and insiders chiming in where it just started spreading like wildfire, where everybody suddenly has sources that are all saying the same thing. I think it's absolutely an intentional leak to, number one, prepare people, number two, kind of get it out there and engage it. But most importantly, see, this is where I know for a fact that Microsoft has their marketing team out there, they know what they're doing. They know that when they release these rumors and they circulate, there's going to be a lot of possible doom and gloom, a lot of negativity potential, but the potential of negativity rises. And one thing that I've made it clear for the past couple of years, since Microsoft got involved with the Xbox brand, Microsoft said, now the Xbox brand is part of our company's vision. They obviously inherited Microsoft's wider marketing team. And something that has become abundantly clear is there's no bad news for Xbox. It just doesn't exist. Because anytime there's a fire, they put that shit out immediately. And this is the perfect example where, of course, this information coming out is going to be viewed as divisive and potentially lead to toxic conversations and possibly generate a fire, right? Well, what did Microsoft... Boom, next day, not even 24 hours, Xbox Direct, Hellblade 2, Avowed, Indiana Jones, and suddenly that's what everybody's focused on. And they make it clear, by the way. Aaron Greenberg made it clear. Oh, yeah, Xbox consoles and Game Pass. And see what I'm saying? So it's it just seems clear to me that this is something Microsoft is trying to... They're trying to thread the needle of they want people to be prepared. And they don't want the conversation to skew too much into a negative territory about them becoming more of a third-party publisher. They want to also make it clear that, sure, stuff may be timed, but if you're I'm a prime example. I would have to really ask myself, if it becomes clear that this is what Microsoft's going to do going forward, am I going to sit here and wait to play Hellblade? Maybe. It depends. It's a possibility. It's a possibility that if there's any chance that Hellblade could eventually release, even if it's 2 years from now, on my preferred console where I like to unlock trophies and stuff, there is that part of me that's I think I would be willing to wait. But then again, there's that other part of me that's well, it's coming out this year and it does look very good. But I don't think Microsoft is going to come out and flat out tell us, hey, just wait a year or two and you can play these games. Maybe they will, but I think it's obvious this is what Microsoft is trying to do. I think that, any of the conversations that are occurring where it seems like there's a lot of back and forth and arguments, I think those are pretty meaningless because at the end of the day, this isn't hurting Xbox nearly as much as some people want to make it sound. It's certainly not hurting PlayStation. And it's also something that I think might be the beginning of, as I said, a wider shift that we could be seeing in the coming years in this industry with these platform holders and these console manufacturers. So, yeah, and that's pretty much it, man. Great, strange times, man. Strange time. I never would have thought that this is the conversations we would be having halfway into this generation, but got to recoup that development cost somehow. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do have a question though. Is there anybody here? If Sea of Thieves or Hi-Fi, well, I know somebody earlier said that with a super chat they would definitely buy Hi-Fi Rush and Platinum it. But how many people here would buy Sea of Thieves or Hi-Fi Rush if they release it on PS5? Guys, I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. See some people saying they would try it out. So yeah, for me, if Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves, I got to be honest, like these are games that don't really speak to me. So if they came to PlayStation, I would be passing on them. But it does kind of make me wonder. Like I do wonder if dude, it's gonna be so crazy. I do think Starfield's gonna come to PS5 at some point. I don't think it's gonna be anytime soon. I personally don't want it because I'm just not interested in it. But that's now when a bigger game like that, if it does come to PS5, that's gonna be man, that's gonna be an interesting day. Um, oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention here too is this kind of puts everything into perspective when it comes to the conversation around Blade. By the way, I think we got our answer when it comes to Blade. You're saying read the Forbes article. Didn't like did they get into an argument or something? Wasn't there like some kind of spat? But the big question with the Blade game was that is it going to be an Xbox exclusive? Look, I still don't think that Blade's going to be like a day one PS5 game. I don't. But I think Blade's going to have like a timed exclusivity period on Xbox. Like I think that is probably something that was negotiated with Marvel, especially because we got that info where the negotiation between Sony and uh, Disney is like 6 million units sold minimum. It's like holy shit. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's timed. Yeah, I had that article up. Maybe we can read that to close this out. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm burping so much today. Uh Third party. So let's close out this topic by reading this article from Paul Tassi. And sorry, I have a couple chats here. Brandon Martin, member for 3 months, says I just sold my Series X and OLED Switch because my wife bought me a gaming laptop and I got a PS5 for free. Damn, dude. I'd say that's pretty good. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to upgrade to the Switch 2 when it comes out. But getting a gaming laptop, getting a free PS5, can't beat that, bro. We have PlayStation Pete with a $5 super chat, and he says, with all Xbox games coming to PS5, Sony won't put out any first-party titles or do a showcase until PS5 sales slow down. PS5 is no competition. Well, yeah, this is why I am interested in this upcoming Xbox Direct, because one of the things I did notice is like Xbox has a lot of games, like a good amount of games lined up for this year, but no release dates yet. And I was kind of wondering if they were going to lay out those release dates sooner rather than later. And yeah, I fully expect that we're going to get multiple release dates with this Xbox Direct. And that's going to be fascinating for me to watch, because it seems like Microsoft's going to have a good first party lineup, like a strong first party lineup this year. And it's kind of interesting to think about Sony. After March, Sony it's barren. They don't have anything that we're aware of except for Concord. So it's like this could be a situation where maybe Microsoft comes out, lays out their roadmap for the year, and Sony's covered till March. Then maybe by March or sometime after that, Sony's like, all right, now let's show ours. Hopefully, right? But yeah, I do agree, PlayStation Pete. Sony, I don't think is worried right now because Sony has there are a lot of games coming to PS5 straight up in the first 3 months. So I don't think they're necessarily worried in the immediate short term. But guys are saying, Jeff Grubb is saying a new State of Play coming in the next few weeks. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I'm fully anticipating a State of Play in February. Here's the thing. I'm not going to be excited about it. I don't mean to be such a downer. I will not be excited for a State of Play because what's that going to do for me? Knowing Sony doesn't make new game announcements at State of Plays for their own titles, That's not what I want to see from Sony. I'll welcome it. Like, I'll watch it and be like, okay, let's watch a state of play. But I need to hear about a showcase. And I don't mean to sound so entitled. Like, again, I'd actually be totally fine if Sony doesn't do a state of play in February or March and they just go right to a showcase, because I just don't know what a state of play is going to do for me at this point. Unless they want to change it up and be like, actually, for the first time ever, we're going to drop a surprise or two in our state of play. They could, but they'll be second and third party surprises, not first party. So I don't mean to sound so unenthusiastic about it, but I just got to be real in that, like, yeah, dude, like last year's February state of play, they literally ended it with a 20-minute demo of Suicide Squad, which was disastrous. So, I'll welcome it. I will. I'm not going to hype it up. I'm not going to like go into it saying I'm excited, because I won't be. If we get some new gameplay if we get like updates on games like Silent Hill and Stellar Blade, like, yeah, I'll be excited for that. That would be awesome. Honestly, but there's still, here's why I can't get that excited. See that right there. You're saying Concord gameplay. I do not think so. That would be quite the surprise. Concord gameplay in a state of play. Sony doesn't. I don't know. I guess they could, but even then, I don't know how excited I could get. The reason why I could not get excited about a state of play right now is because I know it will not fill the void. It won't. It'll help in the short term, like, oh, there's a little something. But the void that I'm speaking of is, we need that Sony showcase. We need it. We needed it last year. We've needed it for the past 2 years, and we still haven't gotten it. So that void needs to be filled, and I'm hoping it happens. But yeah, if we get like Silent Hill updates on Silent Hill 2 and stuff, if games I'm excited about, I could feel good about it by the end of it. But I just can't, I just can't sit here and be like, yeah, state of play, let's go. Like, I've been down that road. I've been down that road, man. But hey, more games, always a good thing. Josh Z with another $10 super chat. Josh, thank you so much for that, buddy. Really appreciate it. You're saying the other thing that Nintendo has always had is developers who are the best at gameplay innovation. Sony has the visual and technical quality, and Microsoft has marketing, but it doesn't seem to help. It's funny because Josh, I feel like you've talked to me about this, and this is why I'm going to have to really focus. I can't comment on this, and that's what makes it tough. Because I don't know if I would agree or disagree with that. I can't say, because it's like I don't play Nintendo games. I couldn't say. But maybe with the Switch too, and this is a maybe. My wife got very excited, Josh, because I was talking to her about this, and I was like, maybe I'll get the Switch too. And she's like, oh yeah, because my wife likes Nintendo. She played I don't know if she played the last Pokemon game or the one before that, but she's been into like the Pokemon game. She played like Animal Crossing and stuff. And like, I think she played Animal Crossing. I'm pretty sure she did. But she's more into Nintendo than I am, certainly. And she'd mentioned like, oh, you're going to play the next like, are you saying you might play the next Pokemon game if you get like the next Switch? And I was like, yeah, maybe. I mean, I played them growing up. Maybe I'll come back to it. I don't know. It's been a long time. And she got super hyped about that. So I think that's something I might be locked into at this point. But I'll have to see, man. Like, if I do embrace the next generation of Nintendo hardware, it'll be very awkward for me, because I don't know what to expect. And I'll keep this in mind, though, Josh. I'll keep this in mind. You're saying that Nintendo is always... yeah, I don't know. It seems like one thing I can say about Nintendo's developers, from what I hear from them, is they are very passionate about... Like, you can tell, like, they really, really care about trying to make make sure their gameplay is like, I think some people maybe see it as pretentious, but I don't think it's pretentious when it's kind of like earned, right? When it's like they achieve that. And it just seems like when it comes to the gameplay side of things, people are delighted a lot with these games. And I guess it always just I always feel like I'm on the outside looking in because it's like from what I like just looking at it, I don't know that I could draw that conclusion, but if there's one thing I've also learned in all my years of playing games is that many times you can, if not almost every time, you truly cannot judge a game fully until you play it. You know? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's always going to be games that we look at that I'm like, it's not for me. But you can't claim to truly know how it feels to play a game until you play it. You can have an opinion on it, but you can't claim to know how it feels. So we'll see, Josh. We'll see what the future holds with me and Nintendo. I mean, I'm very interested to see what Nintendo does this year. Uh, we'll see. I'll leave it at that. We'll see. But either way, Josh, I do appreciate that. I'm going to read this article now. This comes from Forbes. Man, my screen is bright. I'm going to have to lower the brightness on my screen at some point. Third-party rumors raise questions about Xbox's long-term strategy. Most of the online gaming discourse yesterday was centered on a handful of rumors about Xbox taking some of its higher-profile games multi-platform. There's been talk Hi-Fi Rush may come to Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation, or both, and then subsequently that Sea of Thieves may do the same thing. And past that, any number of older, already released Xbox titles, although the details of that remain nebulous. Nothing official has been announced. But even as a thought exercise for now, this has sparked a lot of debate about Xbox's priorities and what exactly they would be trying to do with moves like this. Some think it's pretty clear that Xbox has been pretty emphatic, that it wants its ecosystem to exist beyond its physical consoles. But moves like this raise questions about the way it's going about this, spreading former Xbox exclusives to its competitors when in no way would they ever do the same for them. Xbox obviously wants to break beyond the confines of the console. That's not a bad idea necessarily. As we know, Sony's struggling with a limited install base of PlayStations, which is why they're looking into faster PC ports and allowing its new developer Bungie to keep Destiny multi-platform and release future games multi-platform as well. But in Microsoft's case, there are a few issues with this. If you start picking and choosing which games go multi-platform some years later, some potentially even within the same year, you confuse your dedicated Xbox fans. Maybe they don't need to own an Xbox, which you can say, fine, we don't need to sell consoles. But maybe they don't feel the need to keep Game Pass either. Clearly, some Xbox exclusives will probably remain exclusive indefinitely, but which ones? If this third-party idea starts happening, it's unclear. Sometimes this makes sense, other times less so. Sea of Thieves is a multiplayer game that has existed for years and may benefit from expanding to other consoles to keep its player base healthy, but conversely, multiple Game of the Year nominee Hi-Fi Rush suddenly expanding to Xbox competitors when it's the biggest first-party success story of 2023 feels much stranger. And again, where does it stop? If Starfield attracted a large player count on Game Pass, who's to say Microsoft wouldn't try to release it on PlayStation for actual box copy sales to further boost its fortunes? Does that one sound improbable? Maybe. I don't think so. If instead Microsoft puts Halo multiplayer on PlayStation instead, now that would be something. Using the same Sea of Thieves logic of keeping its player count healthy, that could make sense on paper, but at what point do you start losing the identity of Xbox as a whole? Microsoft wants to keep attracting more and more Game Pass subscribers, but the idea is that they probably hit a ceiling on console signups and they need to look elsewhere for more. But say Sony isn't going to let Game Pass run on PlayStation, most likely. So do these third-party games accomplish? What do these third-party games accomplish besides a bit of extra game revenue? Are they supposed to be serving as ads for Game Pass signups more generally off those platforms? That seems like a reach. Industry figures claim that the longer-term goal is to move beyond dedicated hardware as much as possible with a huge focus on the cloud. But cloud gaming has so far proven to be an added feature at best, not an industry-chasing shift. And no matter what Microsoft does, at least in the US, where and internet is spotty at best in many places, it seems like it would be hard to ever get that up to full adoption. With third-party moves like this, Microsoft would in fact start to deliver on its "we want people to play Xbox games everywhere" promise, and Xbox fans would still at least get its games on Game Pass first, but it's an odd strategy. As you know, the reverse would never, ever be true. Sony isn't giving God of War or The Last of Us to Microsoft no matter how many years pass. The same for Nintendo and any of its treasured IPs. Rather than making it look like Microsoft has a coherent plan for the Xbox brand going forward, it comes off more like a Hail Mary to attract more eyes to its games. And I'm not sure this is going to pan out the way they think. So that was the article by Paul Tassi from Forbes. And, I will say, see, to me, a red flag at the bottom of what he said there, he says, and you know that this will never, ever happen in reverse. We don't know that. We don't know. Like, I know we want to think we know, but we just don't. Like, maybe with Nintendo, we have much more confidence. But, dude, again, I think that this article basically just asked a bunch of obvious questions without providing any meaningful answers. And look, man, I'm not saying that I can give you like a clear answer, but to me, this just seems like, look, what? I'll ask this last question, and then I do have other topics I wanted to cover on this show today. What does Microsoft lose by doing this? That's my question. What do they lose that they haven't already? I don't know what the answer to that question is, except for nothing, because nothing comes to mind. Their console, they've already, dude, listen, I'll be honest, they already lost that. I think we can agree with that. Again, man, I saw an Xbox influencer practically be rating the console. Like, somebody who's I guess established in the Xbox community. I think it's safe to say that they've already lost that, and I don't mean that in an egregious way. It's just that even they said it. They said it themselves. Credibility from their base. Okay, that to me, that's a less tangible but possible real thing. But that's the question. Any Xbox fan who was upset about this news yesterday, are they not tuning into tomorrow's Direct? Are they not going to be excited for Hellblade or Avowed? I don't think so. They have nothing to lose. That's to me, that's the biggest thing here. They have nothing to lose. And when we talk about the idea of Sony ever doing the same thing, the only reason Sony would ever do the same thing, from what I can tell, is if they felt like it was necessary. Like they're in a similar position where it's like, look, we're in trouble right now. We need to recoup costs. We need to recoup them rapidly, or we're going in the red. We're sinking, right? And luckily, Sony isn't there yet. And I say yet because it's like it could go that way for them. But here's something else that's worth keeping in mind. Sony's not scaling up the same way Microsoft is. And I think people need to also keep that in mind. I think when I zoom out and I get further away from the entire thing, a question I start to ask myself is, how is anybody even a little bit surprised by this? Like, they just spent $68 billion on the biggest video game publisher in the industry. It's like, for an entire year, I was told by so many people that Microsoft is making the biggest moves we've ever seen. They're going to trounce Sony. Sony could never hope to make these types of moves. And that's true. And I was like, well, yeah, this is crazy. This is unprecedented. But now some people want to act like they're putting, like there's, like it's just so surprising. I feel like, honestly, I already came to my conclusion last year at the end of November when Tim Stewart said what he said. Tim Stewart let the cat, people were telling me, they're like, bro, he just let the cat out of the bag. And the conversation got very annoying because it got really noisy from a lot of people screeching, saying that like, oh, it's just PlayStation fans begging for whatever. It's like, no, like they just let it slip that this is their plan, because why wouldn't it be? It makes all the sense in the world. They even fucking, like, this is the whole argument that the ABK deal hinged on in the first place with the regulators. It's not official yet, so we do need to keep that in mind. But it's like, it went from, at the end of November, Tim Stewart saying what he said, and people saying, I think they're going third party. It went from that to everybody being like, no, they're not. No, they're not. You're just hearing what you want to hear. Phil Spencer already said Game Pass isn't coming to PlayStation and Xbox. He didn't say anything about third party, though. But he said Game Pass isn't coming. So, and we left it alone. And I said, and you know where I left it? I said, I'll believe it when I see it. That's where I left it. And just a couple, not even a couple months later, just like a month later, here we are, where there's multiple games apparently now locked and loaded, ready to go. And there's more to come. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it's a surprising thing because, well, here we are. So you're saying they'll probably leave the console market? See that? So I do want to say, and I feel like I didn't touch on this enough, because that's the whole thing. I don't want to just continue talking about this for weeks to come. That's why I'm trying to make sure I get everything I want to say out here, unless we get like more breaking news on it or something. When it comes to the console space, I don't think this is an indication that they're going to leave the console space. And that's why I said earlier, like, I would be very worried. Not very, but somewhat worried. I think people jump to conclusions. Like, people make it sound like Sony would just become an evil villain if Xbox stopped making consoles. Like, guys, they don't, like, Sony has to be worried about hurting themselves too, you know? Like, they're not, like, even if Microsoft stopped making consoles, they're not alone. They still have Nintendo and the PC marketplace to compete with to a certain extent. You know, it's like they couldn't just literally do whatever they want. But they would have more leeway to do more if they wanted. And that's the concern. But I'll be honest. I said just a moment ago, like, Microsoft has nothing to lose in the console space because it seems like the console's already done. Dude, Microsoft literally announced they're not competing with Sony in the console space. So if Sony wanted to make any decisions based on lack of competition, they would have already made them, or they did already make them. So this idea of being super concerned about Sony going off the deep end, dude, they either already did or they would have. So that's, to me, not necessarily a concern. To me, it's just more about trying to understand and gauge the place that an Xbox console would have if this really does go into full effect, because I don't think Microsoft will stop making the console, but I think I think the Xbox is essentially going to turn into an afterthought, but something that matters to the core base. I do. I think that's where the Xbox console would ultimately end up if Microsoft really starts leaning more heavily into third party, where it's like, it's not relevant in the competitive conversation. It's not competing with PlayStation. It's not competing with Switch, but it still exists. And what it is doing is it's serving 20, 30 million people that still care enough about the Xbox console to go buy one. And I think that's where it's going to, I think that's kind of what we're already seeing. If you think about it, like, we're already kind of seeing that. And I just think that Microsoft has accepted, like, you know what? We're cool with that. We're fine with that. But who knows, man? Who knows what Microsoft may be planning at the start of next generation, whenever they want to start it. Yeah, you're saying y'all should know that it's probably not a good thing for so-called console enthusiasts. It's not ideal. I mean, it would be totally interesting to me if right now the conversation was the Xbox consoles and the PlayStation consoles are neck and neck. You know? Like, who's going to have the better lineup this year? Who's going to knock who out this round? Or, you know, something like that. But that's not what it is. It's just, there's competition in the game space. In the hardware space, there's not. we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that's, I think, where I'm going to end this conversation. I got to admit, it did go on longer than I thought it would. I had even more to say than I thought I did. Capono says, bro, Microsoft is confusing. They are, but it's because I think they're also trying to figure it out. And I expect it to just continue to be confusing. And yeah, I don't know that there's much else left to say. I guess at this point, I just kind of want to know, like, generally speaking, you know, if you're somebody who's watching this later on, you can leave it in the comment. But generally speaking, like, what is your take on this, on these rumors? How do you feel about Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and possibly other back catalog Xbox exclusives getting PS5 versions? I've been talking so much about it myself. I haven't really asked you guys your thoughts on it. When is the Xbox Direct? January 18th. So people were asking me if I'm going to stream this. I am, and do you know why? Because, well, two reasons. Hellblade's going to be there, but I'm already streaming that day. At the time this is happening, I'm literally going to be streaming. So, like, it's happening at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So it'll happen 3 hours into my stream. Basically, we can end my stream just watching it and seeing what's on show. Because I wasn't, like, I gotta admit, I probably wouldn't go out of my way to stream it, but January 18th, I'm pretty sure I have that correct. Yeah, that's a Thursday, so I will be streaming that day. So yeah, we'll just watch it. Yeah, I've been seeing that. That's quite the surprise. The Indiana Jones game is apparently releasing in 2024. Apparently, it's coming out this year. And we have Jake Skew 27 dropping another membership gift. Jake Skew is he's single-handedly keeping the membership train rolling today. Over 3 hours into the stream, he brings us up to 16 guys. We need 9 more members to hit our goal today. All right, so 9 more. Let's see if we can end up doing it before this comes to a close. But either way, Jake, I really appreciate that, man. Thank you guys for all the support you've been showing. Really.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's awesome to see. You're saying Indiana Jones will get a 10-minute segment? Is that confirmed? Isn't Indiana Jones confirmed to be like a first-person game? More than 10 minutes of game and developer insights. I'm not like a big you know, it's weird. I'm not big into Indiana Jones at all, but it'll be interesting to see how this game turns out. Is it first? I could have swore. Is it third? It is third person. No, I don't know. So you guys are arguing now. Some people are saying first, some are saying third. Well, we'll find out. You're saying I'm not big on anything. No, there are things I'm big on. Indiana Jones to me is just, oh yeah, it's cool. You're saying every time. No, dude, I'm big on Hellblade. I'm big on State of Decay. It's confirmed third person. Okay, that's good. Yeah, first person would have been strange. First person would have been strange. I'm big on Lies of P. Let's meet halfway. It's second person. Oh my god, what would that even look like? All right. Here's what we're going to do now. I want to this is going to be very brief, and it has to be very brief because there was like basically nothing announced, but Sony at CES. The biggest thing that Sony seemingly announced at CES is that they reached a new record of total players. December 2023, PSN had 123 million players and users logged in during that month across PS5, PS4, and PS3. This was basically the big thing that they announced, which is, it just goes to show like how incredibly underwhelming Sony PlayStation's presence at CES was. They didn't have anything, so that's good. That's definitely a good thing for PlayStation. Their big thing is obviously wanting to grow that number, so it's nice to see that they're hitting an all-time high here. That is across 3 consoles. It's funny to me that PS3 is part of that, but apparently more people play PS3 than we would realize, which is so funny to think. They did announce, so something else they announced is that the writing process for the God of War and Horizon TV series has begun. So there's that. They also announced, let me see here, that Polyphony Digital is collaborating with Sony Honda on a real-life car. So there's that. I think there was also, this isn't PlayStation related, but I think Sony also said they're doing something with space now, like they're going into space or some shit. I don't know. I don't know. But that's basically it, dude. So I gotta say, I am quite shocked that PSVR 2 was not discussed at all at CES. Like, there was nothing. They teased it in the promotional work, and there was nothing, as far as I'm aware, there was nothing VR2 related there. And that's that to me, look, I'm not saying it's a bad sign. It's not a good sign, but it's like, I really thought that PSVR 2 was going to have something, anything. But yeah, they have like an AR headset they're working on, which I don't know about that. But then, then again, maybe it does make sense that PSVR 2 wouldn't show up, because to be honest, now I'm realizing that what would they have to show? Because you know what I forgot? I forgot that when they showed off PSVR 2 last year at CES, it was because it was right before it was about to be revealed, or not revealed, released. So that actually makes more sense. I guess that kind of explains why I wasn't there. I guess nothing really tech related for Sony, but that's it. See, this is why I tried to tell people, because I'm telling you, I saw it. I saw it on the internet. People were getting excited that the PS5 Pro. I was like, guys, the PS5 Pro is not going to show up at CES. It's just not going to happen. So I hope you guys listen to me. That's one time where I kept my expectations in check there, okay? Something else I want to briefly touch on here. I don't have a whole lot to say about this, but I think it's worth noting here. Hogwarts Legacy, it's been announced by WB that it sold over 22 million copies in 2023 and is the year's best-selling game. There you go. I mean, what an absolute behemoth of a game. And guys, I think it's fairly obvious that the boycott worked. The boycott worked, man. Clearly this game was supposed to sell easily 35 million units, but thanks to that boycott, they only managed 22 million. So, good job, people. Keep it up. But holy shit, that's insanely good. Like, 22 million copies, man. That's I gotta say, I knew Hogwarts Legacy was gonna be big, and I knew it was gonna sell well, but I didn't expect that. MBG, Alan Wake is joining Dead by Daylight. I saw that. Alan Wake as a survivor is joining Dead by Daylight, which is pretty cool. I love to see those collaborations. I'm shocked Sony hasn't collabed with Dead by Daylight yet for something. I think it would be perfect. Especially because Sony collabed with Fortnite, so do it with Dead by Daylight. Maybe something Last of Us themed. That could work. That'd be pretty cool. Um, but yeah, there's obviously going to be a sequel to Hogwarts Legacy. Obviously. Get Knack in Dead by Daylight. Dude, Knack is the killer. Dude, no. We need Mark Cerny in Dead by Daylight as a killer. That's what we need. We need Mark Cerny as a killer in Dead by Daylight. That would be that would be the only thing I play at that point. Let me see. So there's something else I want to talk about with you guys here, because this is this to me is not surprising, but I think we are on the cusp of seeing the true downfall of Rocksteady. As you guys know, in just a couple of weeks, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is releasing, and the first batch of previews are coming out, and I have it up on screen here. If you just Google Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, IGN, we played Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and did not like it. Game Informer had a preview. There's a PlayStation blog. It says here from Kotaku, let me see. They say Suicide Squad boss downplays live service elements of a obviously live service game. This is just what is popping up now, but there are other previews as well. I'm trying to find them. They're basically, what I'm trying to say is they're all negative as far as I can tell. I didn't read all of them, but it seems like it's just not good. Forbes says Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League previews mixed results at best. Eurogamer says Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League sees Rocksteady's trademark world building held back by trend chasing. GameSpot says Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is ambitious but conflicted. PC Games and says Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League isn't an Avengers-like flop. Pretty sure it's going to be worse, based off of what I can tell. And it just seems like it's exactly what we thought it was, man. It's exactly what we thought it was. And we have Jake Skew 27. Jake Skew 27 drops another membership gift. Guys, he brings us up to 17. Are we going to do it? Are we going to do it? Are we going to hit the goal of 25? We'll see. But Jake, I appreciate. Jake is helping us get there, man. Jake drops 2 membership gifts. Really appreciate that. Shelly, you're saying you played Suicide Squad and you liked it a lot. I really don't understand their complaints. Being a live service doesn't make it bad. What trends does it chase? It's not a battle royale. Well, so here's the thing. So I haven't played it, but the thing that really turns me off about this game, like the thing that really makes me just be like, I don't want to touch this game, is the fact that it's set in the DC universe. It could have been, I've said this before, but it's worth reiterating again. It could have been any set of characters, any singular character. They take some of the most uninteresting characters, in my opinion, and they give them guns and they make it a shooter. And it's like, I can't believe this is where they went. And not only that, but they took this long to make this. And it's like, no, if you're excited for the game and like you played it and you liked it, that's all that matters. I'm not here to dissuade anybody from anything. I'm just giving my own thoughts. And my whole thing is, and I talked to you guys about this when I was going over all the games coming out in February and March, and I'm like, dude, I put that game on my list, but I had to take it off because it's like there's other games. There's other games, and a lot of them. And I'm just, I get the feeling that for me, if I were to try to play Suicide Squad, it would be a game that I end up regretting. I am all about buying games and supporting that. I'm not against that, but I'm at the same time, I don't want to waste my money. I don't want to buy a game that I feel like I regret and was a waste of my time and money. No one wants that. But hey, man, if it's what you want to play, then Exley says I'm here to dissuade you. Do not support this garbage. By the way, I don't know if that's coming through on my mic. If you hear any background noise, I can never tell how well this mic, how good this mic is at filtering background noise. but maybe that's coming through a little bit. I think it's pretty good at it, though. I think my mic's pretty good at filtering background noise. But yeah, I guess I'm just saying, like, the first batch of previews, not gunshots, no. The first batch of previews for Suicide Squad came out, and unfortunately, it's not looking too good. It's boss activate. It's yeah. All right, so let me see here. I'm just checking something real quick before I. All right, so just to get a little bit more information on this, Jeff Grubb, this is being reported by Gaming Leaks and Rumors. They say Jeff Grubb, Nintendo Direct in February, state of play in the next few weeks. Via transcription, quote, "It is the one I heard that was coming up fastest, but you can always count on a Nintendo Direct in February. Is almost certainly going to happen in February again. That leaves the question about a state of play. There is a state of play coming. There's a state of play coming. When exactly? Not sure, but I'd expect it in the next few weeks. State of plays are always weird, man. You always get the sense that these are just contractual obligations. They just told a company that they'd give them free marketing so they fill a need and have to do it. So it could be disappointing. So not it's very vague. Like, I feel like I could say that. I see. A lot of people are quick to discredit Jeff Grubb, and I'm not here to defend him, but I will say, like, Jeff Grubb was the only person last year that called a state of play and the showcase. So, if he's saying that there's going to be a state of play in a couple weeks, I I do believe it. But I guess the last topic of this show today, I want to ask you guys, if Sony does announce a state of play for sometime in February, what realistically, like, what are you expecting? What are your highest expectations realistically? I don't want to hear something like Ghost of Tsushima 2 or some shit like that. Keep it realistic. I'm just curious where you guys stand on this. Shem says nothing. You're saying great, another Xbox showcase that's overhyped and never delivers. Rise of the Ronin. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would absolutely expect to see Rise. I would expect Rise of the Ronin, if it's seemingly going to be as good as I'm hoping it is, to get its own dedicated state of play, maybe. Stellar Blade news. Yeah, to me, that seems like a good place to show off Stellar Blade. More Final Fantasy. Wolverine, duh. Yeah, somebody's like, screw it. It already leaked. Here you go. A launch trailer for FF7. Yeah, that would make the most sense. That and Rise of the Ronin. Shelly, I can see you're keeping your expectations very realistic right now. Spider-Man DLC. Okay, Spider-Man 2 DLC. That could show up. Yeah, that would be a nice little kind of in-between. I don't know if I'm excited for Spider-Man 2 DLC. I'll be honest, man. The further I get away from Spider-Man 2, I'm just fine with it, Like, I know it depends on what the DLC is, truthfully. It depends on what the DLC is. Pragmata, that would be an interesting game to show up. George, you're saying MBG, not sure if you saw the rumors of a PlayStation showcase late January/February. Not sure how credible the sources are, though. Well, you'll have to tell me who's saying that. I haven't heard anything about a showcase. As I would expect. Oh God, the hell! This weird, strange feeling in my ear. Sorry. I would expect at the earliest, when it comes to a showcase, I mean, I'll be honest, man, I don't expect anything before May. It's clear that Sony will do showcases in May, but I would think May at the soonest. Not before Jim leaves. Yeah, I don't know where that rumor's coming from. If there's a rumor circulating about a showcase right now, I would assume it's in reference to a state of play. How funny would that be, though? That would be funny. That would be quite the shocker. I'd welcome it. I'd welcome Sony being like in February, hey, we're doing a showcase. Be like, okay, great, but I don't expect it. Secret showcase. Yeah. Yeah, that was a tough one, man. I really held on for a long time thinking there was, granted, we did get that showcase eventually, last year, but I just feel like I'll be honest, man, I feel like I can't hype up anything anymore. I hate to say that. I just feel like I can't. Not in like to be clear, there's a difference between getting excited about something and hyping something up. I feel like I can easily get excited about things. Like I am excited about things. I'm excited about many games coming out. I would be somewhat excited for a state of play, knowing we might see like Silent Hill 2 and stuff like that. But in terms of like getting hyped, I feel like when it comes to PlayStation, I can't do that anymore after what happened last year, where I have to proceed with caution, like be excited, but don't cross that threshold of like hype mode engaged. Let's go. I'll save it for when it actually happens. Oh, that would be awesome. I didn't think of that. Metal Gear Solid Delta showing up. Maybe it'll show up tomorrow, dude. I don't know. Metal Gear Solid Delta showed up at the last Xbox little third-party show they did. Maybe it'll show up tomorrow, or not tomorrow at the Xbox show. If not, if Sony does do a state play, I would love to see more Metal Gear Solid Delta. Yeah, sorry. I said tomorrow. There's nothing happening tomorrow. As far as I'm aware, there's nothing happening tomorrow. I apologize for that. Gosh. Yeah, I think you're right about that too. You're saying you're pretty sure the developer direct is just first party. I think you're right about that. That's interesting the way Microsoft is doing it. They're putting on these different shows, but they're separating them where this show is dedicated to third party. This show is dedicated to first party. Did I see the new Helldivers 2 gameplay trailer released today? I did. It got me hyped, man. Like Helldivers 2 looks fun. I don't know that Helldivers 2 is going to be incredible, but it looks promising. It looks like it has potential. It looks like a good time. You're saying I'm all over the gaff today? Hold on. Jay Shaka, what does this mean? I'm not in the loop here, bro. Hold on. You're asking, can you play Helldivers 2 solo? I don't know. I don't think so. Like, I think you could try. But the trailers seem to indicate you don't want to play. I don't know. The trailers seem to hint that you can, but you probably don't want to. It might be too difficult. But I see people in the chat saying, yes, you can. So I guess, okay. It's very hard. Yeah, I get that feeling. It seems like a game that does require teamwork. I wonder if they have like bots potentially that you can play with. But well, I guess we'll see what the remainder of January has in store for PlayStation and Xbox. It seems like we're not even 2 weeks into the new year and there's already some strange and interesting things happening. some surprising stuff, some not so surprising stuff. You want to get Dead by Daylight just to play Alan Wake? Dude, I forgot that Tekken's coming out at the end of this month too. God damn. So many games, man. So many games. But I think this is where I'm going to bring this stream to an end here. We are going to do a members lounge for a little bit. So if you are a channel member, I hope you'll join me in the members lounge. I want to just put that out there. Let me check one last thing before I head out here. Okay. All right. Yeah, so this is gonna do it. This is gonna cap off our stream today. What about the member goal? Well, yeah, so we're finishing today's stream with 17 members, which is still good, you know. Very solid, I think. Excuse me. But you know, a lot of support with super chats, which I want to just make sure I thank everybody for all of your continued support. Anybody who gifts memberships, anybody who became a member, and all the super chat donations, I really appreciate all the support you guys show. If it wasn't for that support, if it wasn't for you guys going above and beyond in that way, I wouldn't be able to do these streams. I wouldn't be able to host the show the way I do, and I wouldn't be able to run the channel the way I do. So I really have to extend a big thank you for making that a possibility and making this happen. You know, of course, I have to set the stuff up and have the conversations, but if it wasn't for you guys showing the support, it wouldn't happen. So as I say that, we got Exley Trismegistus. Exley comes in the 11th hour, drops another 5-bomb on us. Exley clearly is trying to get us to the goal. He's trying to get us to the goal here, guys. So he drops 5 more. So he brings us to 21 members. 21 members. Is anybody going to do it? I feel like I got to give it just a second here just to see. And dude, Hellbound. This is why these guys are the GOATs, man. They come in, they did it. Exley and Hellbound, they tag team that shit. They're like, yo, we're crushing that goal before this stream comes to an end. Hellbound drops another 5. So that's, guys, that's 10 memberships gifted in literally under 30 seconds. So 10 more people now have access to the members lounge where we're going to go hang out in just a couple of moments. So Exley, Hellbound, seriously, thank you guys so much. I got to admit, I was not expecting that. I was totally content with 17 members. That's a lot. And I was very happy with that. And you guys are like, no, bro, we're going to get to 27. So let me just make sure I update this so you guys can see that reflected before we end this stream. Oh, I do want to let you know as well. I'll just put up to 25. Hold on. Let's see. And as I'm updating the goal here, we have Gavin. Gavin Hillett comes in and he says he wants to get in on this and he wants to pay it forward. He drops a membership. So Exley and Hellbound clearly inspired Gavin here to drop one as well. Gavin, dude, thank you so much, man. It's always really nice to see different people kind of chipping in a little bit and dropping some membership gifts. I'm waiting for YouTube to give me an update here. YouTube let me know at the end of last year in December that they're going to give me, and I guess every other all channels out there, basically memberships to give out, to gift myself. I've been kind of waiting for them to update me on that and let me know when that can happen. That's a really cool thing that YouTube's doing. I actually really like that idea. It's to help kind of basically just give out some free memberships and encourage people, which is very nice. So Gavin, thank you so much for that. Gavin brings us up to 28, which you love to see it. Let me finish updating this so you can see where we're at. And there was something I wanted to say here about the members lounge before we close out. So I'm trying to get a little bit of, well, I don't know. I say that. I was going to say I'm trying to get a little bit of feedback on the members lounge, but I think what I'm trying to let you guys know is that when it comes to the members lounges, the way I've been doing it this year so far, I mean, we're only like 9 days into the year, so it hasn't been, you know, um, too much. Not too much time has went by. It's just been very kind of all over the place, and it's probably going to remain that way at least for now because I have trouble like constructing proper thumbnails or titles for the members lounges for the simple fact that I just don't know like how it's going to go and what we're going to talk about. But what I will say is that because people have been asking me like, when are you going to stream games or gameplay? You will know that. Okay. I just want to make that clear that whenever I'm going to stream a game in the members lounge, or if there's going to be any gameplay, that will be reflected in the title and the thumbnail. So, because I don't want it to just be a total mixed bag where it's like, I mean, I don't know, maybe some people would like that, but I know that people have different preferences. Some people prefer just the one-on-one conversations. Some people prefer watching some gameplay. So you'll know when that happens. Today, there's not going to be any gameplay, though. I honestly think I'm just going to hold off for now, probably until, I don't know, probably, of course, John says Sekiro stream, bro. I'll probably hold off until, I'll probably kick it off, I should say. That's the way I should put it. I'll kick off gameplay with everybody's favorite game, the very non-divisive game, The Last of Us Part 2. But yeah, I want to see how I handle that no return mode. And then from starting with The Last of Us Part 2, considering how rapidly games are going to start releasing, we'll probably be streaming a lot of gameplay. That's my goal. That's my goal, man. And you know what? Shit. I just realized I think I'm going to have to buy another capture card because I told you guys I bought this cheap-ass capture card. It gets the job done, but I can't stream at a solid 1080p 60. I have to choose between 1080p 30 or 720p 60, and that's BS. It's 2024, man. Get it together, MBG. So I'm probably going to invest in a better capture card because that's something we're going to be doing a lot more. Oh, and yeah, I forgot to mention one last thing. CES 2024, Sony is showing off for the first time the new colored plates and covers for the PS5 Slim. So they did show that off. Am I going to stream in 4K? Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. I think that's just too extreme, even for my internet potentially. But mainly because if I try to stream at 4K, there's going to be a lot of latency. YouTube. Let me see here. If I understand correctly, YouTube doesn't let you stream at low latency at 4K. If you're streaming at 4K, you have to stream at normal latency, which is annoying to me because the chat is always like too far behind from what I'm saying. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the stream. Another stream nearly 4 hours long. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you today. I obviously prefer to focus on PlayStation-centric conversations, but today I think was certainly a worthy time to dive deeper into talking about Xbox, considering, I mean, this does pertain directly towards PlayStation. It's crazy to think we might be getting Xbox games on PlayStation in the future. But a couple of other smaller topics. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to make sure I give a big shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps for all the streams. Does a great job. So if you see him in the comments with the timestamps, give him a big thank you. And once again, a massive thank you to everybody who gifted members, everybody who super chatted. You guys are amazing. And this is just an awesome thing we have going here. So with that being said, I think I'm going to shoot to have the members lounge probably at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So in 15 minutes, I'm going to get it set up. And we'll chat for a little while, okay? So to all my members who are going to join me, I'll see you soon. If you're not going to be joining me or, if you're going to be joining me in the next stream, then I will catch you then. But until the next time, guys, take care.